Kay and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
.06, your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Big news in college football today, Alex.
Yeah?
College football decided to keep something as it was. Doesn't happen very often. Did happen this time around. It's because nobody could come to terms. The Big Ten and the SEC had different ideas on what the future of the college football playoff should look like. The SEC wants 16 teams. The Big Ten is cool with 16 for now, but wants a guarantee that eventually the college football playoff would go to 24 teams. This is all according to multiple reports. And the SEC said, we're not going to do that right now. So we're sticking at 12. Now, there is a slight change to the way the college football playoff will work in future seasons, but this had already been agreed upon. But apparently college football athletic directors forgot about this. So I'm guessing that not a whole lot of fans knew about this either. And part of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, apparently,
Of course they have an MOU.
If Notre Dame is ranked in the top 12 at the end of the season, they're automatically qualified for the college football playoff.
Way to go, Notre Dame.
Good for
Props to you.
Have you seen their schedule for next year?
Oh, it's super
They're
easy.
going to be like top 5 with that schedule.
Yeah.
They basically have 3 games of significance and really closer to 2.
I was going to say,
but
I think there's 2 games that they could potentially lose.
So they go against 4-8 Wisconsin, 5-8 Rice, 4-8 Michigan State, 2-10 Purdue. That's going to be a tough one on the road. The
gonna be a
fight
barn burner.
Barry-Odoms, 4-8 North Carolina,
Oh, that's a loss.
11-2 Navy.
Okay.
Credit to our servicemen.
What in the world did you
13-3 Miami, 2-10 Boston College, 9-4 SMU, 3-9 Syracuse,
Good
4-8
God.
Stanford, and they finish out the season at 12-2 BYU. Those are all those
Wow.
records from this past season.
I don't know if they're going to get through both North Carolina and who was the one right after North
We
Carolina?
got
Purdue? Was it
Purdue.
Purdue?
Yeah,
Purdue
yeah,
on there.
Purdue, and then
Boston College.
yeah,
at
Boston
2-10.
College, man. Those Eagles are going to
Oh,
fly
they
in
won a
that
second
game.
last year? I thought they only had one.
They
Good for
did
them.
have 2.
Bill O'Brien's going to put a steamroll on Notre Dame.
So Notre Dame gets this special exception. And T-Bone, I know this year we were very excited about, hey, it's not the Power 4 conferences, those champions that get in automatically. It's the 4 highest ranked conference champions that get in, which screwed over the ACC. Well, this time around, that will change. It is the 4 power conference champions that get in, and the group of 5 also gets a team that gets into the college football playoff. My takeaways from all of this, the news today, this broke earlier this morning that they would not be expanding. I'm fine with everything. Now, the Notre Dame thing, I find to be really silly. I don't understand why that's necessary or why there's like this separate agreement for them. What is their leverage? What are they going to say? Like, okay, we'll go play in our own playoff if you don't include us with this guarantee.
We're
Like,
like our own league.
fine, go. Like, why are we carving out this exception for you? If it's the Big Ten and they said something like, okay, yeah, we kind of need you to be a part of this thing. But fine, see ya, get out of here. I don't understand that. That's silly to me. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But everything else, I thought the playoff was great this year. I don't think they need to expand immediately. Let's see how this goes for a few years. For the first time, we're actually going to try this thing out again the same way. So that way we can get more data points to find out where are we maybe having some issues with this. Is the bye actually a problem for these teams? Are they having too much time off? Should we do more games on campuses? Should there be an extra week like we talked about yesterday with Josh Pate where we are getting these play-in types of games? Is the conference championship necessary? Let's see one more season of this before we make these sweeping changes to the landscape of college football.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't care if they expand it because, to be honest, this was a really fun season, and I think it would be fun if you added a couple more teams into it. We were talking about Vanderbilt, Notre Dame last year that they should have been in. So I'm fine with it. I think the NCAA has a lot more issues to figure out before they need to worry about expanding the playoffs. Like with Josh Pate's scenario, I think you need to resolve this whole regular season and then the portal season and then the transfer situation and the coaches leaving while playoff football's taking place and waiting a month to play another game when they're irrelevant. That's your big issue right now. It's not should we expand and make more money.
But our bank accounts are getting low.
You're going to get there, NCAA, I promise, because guess what? You guys are like the Wild Wild West. There's no rules out here. You do whatever you want. You get lawsuits coming in, and nobody cares. Figure out your in-season problems right now. Figure out how to resolve this whole transfer portal thing and guys leaving mid-season and jeopardizing playoff chances for a lot of these players. Figure that out, and then you can worry about expanding the postseason.
Yeah, I actually like that we're sticking with 12. I think the more we expand, the less important the regular season becomes, which I'm not a fan of. I think that's what makes college football special is the regular season really matters, and a lot of games still feel big, which was one concern I had when they expanded from 4 to 12. I like where we're at, man. I'm glad they stuck with 12. I don't know how I feel. I'm not surprised they made this move. I don't know how I feel about like automatically locking in the 4 power conference champions, because that would have meant Duke would have been a playoff team this past year. And look, I know people hated seeing 2 power 5 or two of the group of 5 teams in the playoff this year. You would have hated Duke in the playoff. I promise you. I saw Duke play Illinois. They are not a good football team. So
I don't know, Miami seemed to really like their quarterback to the tune of giving him about $10 million to come
he was good. That was about the only positive from that Duke football team this past year. That's the only thing that I don't necessarily like, but I understand how we got here, right? We know who's really in control of the college football playoff. Whatever with the Notre Dame thing. I mean, basically, if you're top 12, guess what? You are a playoff team, as I've seen with basically every time we lay out the playoff for the most part. So I like the fact that we're sticking with 12. I know that we're going to expand, but I would prefer we stay with 12 for as long as possible.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm happy that they have at least come to terms with what next year is going to look like. Now we know, and we can judge all of these teams accordingly.
Also, isn't there something very poetic about how they came to the conclusion of what next year's going to look like because they ran out of time and couldn't come to a decision?
Yeah.
The NCAA, man.
Absolutely.
They're probably like, we got 4 other lawsuits that we're worrying about right now. Let's not worry about the playoff expansion, all right?
Yeah, it's going to take some time before they're able to really get this thing back on the rails. I will say, though, the ratings came out today for this year's college football playoff national championship game. Highest rated game they've ever had.
Wow. Does that surprise you a little bit for the teams that were involved?
Absolutely. Yes.
Like, I know everybody was in on Indiana being there, but like...
I think the surprising part for me, that's because I could see how a lot of people would like the underdog story of Indiana and in the rise of Mr. Mean Kurt Cignetti. The surprising part for me is because there was no buzz going into the game. And we talked about it.
Especially for like games where it was Alabama and Georgia, the 2 best teams in college football.
Alabama Clemson a few years ago. Like, that was unbelievable. There was Deshaun Watson. I know. But like at the time, this guy that you had seen growing up in college, Dabo is this huge character. Nick Saban, like, there were so many huge names on these teams. Let's be real. How many players outside of Fernando Mendoza did a casual college football fan know from those 2 games or from those 2 teams?
Casual?
Outside of him and maybe Carson Beck, that would have been
That's kind of it, right?
Maybe Tony because he was a freshman stud, but even him I wouldn't think I would put up there.
Meanwhile, you look back at some of those teams that we have seen in yesteryear.
I knew what the 3rd-string running back was for Alabama's team.
Yeah, and you grew up
Derrick Henry, probably.
You saw them for years on the same rosters, and there's so much uncertainty, upheaval, and even the coaches for these 2 teams, respectively. Like, Mario Cristobal is not exactly a household name. Now, maybe he is going to be, and Kurt Cignetti wasn't, now probably is, but it did surprise me to see those numbers. I think it speaks to gambling, how much of an influence that has on viewership totals. We're seeing this in the NFL as well. That Broncos game from last week against the Bills, unbelievable game, don't get me wrong, but Bo Nix was one of the starting quarterbacks. Wow. And it was one of the highest rated NFL playoff games that we've seen in recent memory. I think gambling probably has a little something to do with that and people locking in on these games all the way to the very end. And then for college football, I think just having the name playoff associated with it, I think that helps. It has that tournament aspect to it. And you look at the NCAA tournament, that also has a lot of huge ratings in viewership as well. So
I think the portal has benefited that too, because you have a lot more of a even playing field rather than the juggernaut one team that you're just now. I know Indiana just kind of steamrolled their way through, but I think leading up to that, you saw pretty competitive playing field.
And fresh blood.
Yeah.
Fresh blood, I think.
That was it,
I
too.
think we see like that
I'm
clearly
always that
plays.
way.
The Broncos are the same thing where, hey, the Chiefs aren't in this year's playoff. It feels wide open. And that clearly has, I think, resonated with fans. I wasn't sure how it would play, but apparently it's worked.
Yeah, I was, to your point on the transfer portal, I actually thought that would be something that would maybe pull away a little bit from it because everybody, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, because it is free agency and it can be like an improving your roster on the fly. I mean, we see this in professional sports all the time, right? People care more about the transactions really than the game sometimes. And I would have thought like people like Mizzou fans, Illinois fans, SMU, whoever your school is that's not in the playoff or just got knocked out of the playoff, their focus would be more kind of pulled away towards the portal of, okay, how are we going to upgrade the roster rather than, okay, I really care what Indiana and Miami are doing. So that surprised me a little bit as well.
I think there were a lot of people, too, that are fans of those other teams that are watching Indiana saying, man, I hope they can do it because if they can, we can.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, it does give you some amount of hope as a fan of a non-blue blood program that this new format does allow for me to believe in my program now. Like if we get the right coach and we get the right quarterback, we could be the next Indiana. So I think Indiana was a great thing for college football for a million different reasons. Whether or not I think it's actually attainable for these other programs doesn't much matter. If other people do, that's what matters. There's hope, and hope sells. It's one of the biggest issues for Major League Baseball right now. Whether there's actually parity in the sport or not, that doesn't matter. It's about whether or not fans believe their team going into the season has a real chance to be able to win something meaningful. College football has that for the first time maybe ever, and Major League Baseball very much does not for the first time in a really long time. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. By the way, some news from Mizzou this morning as they are expected to land a big-time defensive end transfer from Miami, redshirted this year because he was not healthy, but good player, seems like a nice addition for them. They're also expected to land a starting wide receiver from Ole Miss as well, Caden Lee. That has not been made official, but it is expected at some point over the next few days. As of right now, they're at number 23 in the portal rankings. With those two other additions, they'll probably be somewhere roughly in the top 20. Illinois, meanwhile, still lagging behind in the transfer portal. They are not ranked among the top 50. They are at 59 right now
Slept on.
in terms of their transfer portal class, right behind the likes of South Florida, West Virginia, and Syracuse. We've got Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios. Check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. You can always get involved via the Air Comfort Service text line as well at 314-399-9646. In 15 minutes, we'll talk to our guy Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us coming off of, yes, another loss for the St. Louis Blues on a Friday.
Couple days it's separated.
We do have, though, back-to-back games this weekend to preview. We will preview those with Mike McKenna coming up at 11:30. Alex and T-Bone were able to catch up this morning with one of our favorite guests that we have regularly on the show, Jeff Marek, NHL insider, does his show for the Daily Faceoff now. We'll talk to him coming up at 1 o'clock. It's a pre-recorded conversation, but I think it's well worth your time. We'll be able to play some of the clips from that at 12 o'clock. But coming up next year on BK and Ferrario, the Zips projections are out, baby. Here we go.
Zip, 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 zip.
What do they say about the Cardinals for 2026? Man, it feels really familiar. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alex, earlier today, I opened up Fangraphs because I do each and every morning because I'm a nerd.
Yes, you are. That is the one true statement you can say on this show.
My guy, Dan Zimborski, who came up with the ZiPS projection. For anybody unfamiliar, it's basically his fancy way of saying, this is what I think is going to happen in 2026. He's done it for every other team. The Cardinals were the final team to get the ZiPS projections out.
Saving best for last.
That's right. And I love the way that he framed this. He said, if you looked up 500 team in the dictionary, you'd find, well, nothing. That's not how dictionaries work. But if they did have existing listings with baseball teams associated with them, you might see the 2025 Cardinals. And then he went on to describe why the 2026 Cardinals are basically a mirror image of that as well. He sees them as a 500 club. He looked at the roster, saw the projections, and said, yeah, this is average. And I looked at that, and I think normally my reaction would be, oh, what a disaster. The Cardinals are going to be 500. That's a huge failure of a season for them. I had the opposite reaction this time around. If this Cardinals club is capable of going 500, they're going to be a hell of a lot better than any of us expected them to be. That'd be a great outcome for the 2026 Cardinals. Now, maybe you want a higher draft pick, and so that would be disappointing for you. But the actual talent getting them to a 500 season, I think that would be, to me, considered a success. But as I dove in more on some of the individual projections for this upcoming season, it appeared that they have a lot of guys. This is not surprising altogether, but it's like numerical form as opposed to just anecdotal. The 2026 Cardinals have a lot of supplementary pieces. A lot of guys that if they're 3-9 or 4-9 on your roster, you feel really good about it. Like you could be a legitimate contender. But you push them up, and it's that Peter principle of you're asking them to be more than what they're capable of. And so it goes back to the age-old question that we've really talked about for nearly a decade here in St. Louis, which is, okay, how are you going to find the dude? How are you going to find the guys in the middle of your order that strike fear into the opposition? And that remains my biggest question for the Cardinals. Can J.J. Weatherholt be one of those players? Big question, open-ended for 2026 and beyond. Is there anybody else in your system that can be that for you? Could Ivan Herrera be it? Is there, Joshua Baez, could he be it? I don't know, but those are to me the open-ended questions as I look at a team that maybe will project to be slightly better than what a lot of fans are currently anticipating.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if that happens, if this is a 500 team, that outperforms what my expectations were because I did think that this team would probably be closer to 100 losses, maybe 90 losses, but you're talking about another potential top 10, top 5 pick. So if you go 500, that's outperforming what my expectations were. But yeah, I look at this roster that he put together on his ZiPS and I say, yeah, that's a rebuilding team. That's a team that's trying to figure out what do we got on our pitching staff? What do we have on our position players? Do we have stars? Because I think Weatherholt, we talked yesterday, is it. But after Weatherholt, I think you have like 3 outs on this team. It's Herrera, it's Wynn, and it's Baez. Being potentially that bat that could be one of those 3. And I don't think any of those have the potential to be a 1, like the main dude. I think they got the potential of being the second dude or the third dude. And as good as that is, if you get 3 guys that are 2s and 3s, that's awesome. But I think to succeed, you're either going to have to be elite on the pitching staff, which, I mean, the ZiPS don't project well for some of these guys, so you're hoping the development stages.
When we're talking about that, we're talking about guys that miss bats. A lot of their rotations, like, fine, if below average at doing that.
You're hoping for Doyle and Matthews and those guys, that, or maybe something that you get in the return of Brendan Donovan. Sure. But you're not going to be elite there unless you find ways to develop and draft or go to the international market. And on the position player side, I think you're still going to, even with what you have now, I still think you're going to be saying we need that number 1.
Somebody on the text line from the 314 said, guys, why don't you ever mention Reynel Rodriguez as a potential stud in the future? Because he's just really far away. He could be. It's possible. Yeah. He might be their first-round pick next year, though, is every bit as likely to be that guy at roughly the same time as Reynel Rodriguez. It really just comes down to what timeline are we talking about here? Are we saying when the Cardinals are potentially a contender in 5 years, who's going to be that superstar? I think that's more likely to be Ray Rodriguez. if we're talking about within the next couple of seasons, who are those star bats for them? That seems to me unlikely. Maybe he outhits my expectations. That'd be awesome. I would love nothing more. But I don't really see that as being likely at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with that because, like, you look at what MLB.com has as his projection for when he arrives is 2028. And typically you need about a year or two maybe at the big leagues to really figure it out. So we're talking about if he is a star, 2030 is the year that I think you're talking about him. Even that's if he gets to the big leagues by 2028. Catchers take a little bit longer to develop, so if they keep him there, it may take even longer. But, yeah, I think when you look at these projections from Zips, I don't really care what the record ends up being. They be 500, that's fine, whatever. They lose 95 games, don't really care. They need to start seeing if there's a path for them to develop a star internally. And if we're being honest, they probably need 2 to 3 of those guys. Because you think of what the best teams have been over the last 5 years in baseball, they typically have 3 thumpers in their lineup. Like the Phillies, we'll use them for an example. It's been Harper, Schwarber, Trey Turner this past year. Mm-hmm. You look at when it was the Padres, it was for a while there, that 1 year, 2 years, I guess it was Machado, Soto, and Fernando Tatis. Like all these teams, the top contenders have 3 elite bats in the middle of their lineup.
Look at the Seattle Mariners. They're searching for that third. They've got Rodriguez, they've got Cal Raleigh, but what's their offseason? Got to go find that other bat because they didn't have it last year.
And it seemed like last year maybe they had found that guy. Naylor isn't your traditional superstar, but he was producing last year like a star-level player.
2 outs. They had him or Suarez when they got him at the deadline.
Exactly.
Toronto built it that way as well with Guerrero Jr., with Bo Bichette, and then who was their
last year, George Springer played that way.
And they paid that guy to be the third.
That's the thing. You don't need somebody that for, a 10-year stretch performs as if they are a superstar. You just need to catch lightning in the bottle.
And that's what the Cardinals did in 21 and 22, right? They had Goalie and Arenado. Those were their top 2. You probably need what you really needed the formula to be is 2 guys that you can bright and pan. We know they're going to be the star for us. And then you hope that third is on your roster, and you've got the potential. Like for 21, it was O'Neill, had that incredible year. And then in 22, they thought it was going to be O'Neill again, and it ended up being a 40-year-old Albert Pujols. Yep. But you got the 3 guys there, and that's what made the lineup dangerous. So you've got to see if you're going to start to have a path towards that. So maybe Herrera is the second or third guy. Maybe Burleson's the second or third guy. But can one of them establish themselves in this rebuild as, okay, right and pen that I'm going to be a guy that can hit like 270, have an 800-plus OPS, and be a potential 30-homer, 100 RBI guy. That's what they're searching for, and that's not going to be an answer they can get on Weatherholt this year. They might be able to get some data points to see what the projections could show for him, but you're not going to get a great answer if he's that guy for really 3 years, if we're being honest.
Yeah, the Cardinals are in a really interesting spot right now because it's all about evaluation and data gathering and building up this core and who is it going to be. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the idea of a core, they're like, okay, well, it's got to be the stars. You've got to build the stars. You got to build the stars. Maybe I view it a little bit differently. I think you can build the core of your roster from the bottom up. I think that's possible. And then you supplement that with the superstars and you go out and acquire those guys. This is honestly what the Cardinals' old model was. They would build their core and then they would bring in Carlos Beltran. They would bring in Matt Holliday. They bring in Jason Hayward. They bring in Marcelo Zuna or Paul Goldschmidt or Nolan Arenado.
A lot of these haven't worked out well.
Well,
it might be why.
Yikes.
Maybe, but I think that says more about their lack of ability to find the right guy externally. I think it can work. They just didn't always hit on the right players to bring in. If you're able to bring in that guy, though, as the superstar, I think it can work. They just need to build that core first. And I'm fascinated to see what Chaim Bloom's view is on that. And we're not going to know for a little while, but is he somebody that views it? You have to build that guy from within. It's possible, and that's going to take some time. Or is he willing to do the old Cardinals model? Are they capable of doing that? And do they have the financial might and means to go out there and acquire a player, then re-sign him, or to acquire a player via free agency that they really haven't been in the bidding wars with in recent seasons? I don't know, but that's the next step in whatever this build is going to look like. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. In 15 minutes, we'll get to Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we will answer them coming up at 11:45. But Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, he joins us next on behalf of the fine folks over at Macadoodles.
101 ESPN has your shot to score 2 tickets to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras, Saturday, February 14th in Soulard. The Blues Alumni Experience puts you in a heated tent right on the parade route with premium drinks, great food, live music, and most importantly, meet and greets with St. Louis Blues legends. Find all the ticket info and enter to win free passes to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Tanner Hendrickson here, and championship weekend is upon us in the NFL, and DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Let's take a look and let's get a play for you here. I'm looking at that AFC championship game. Look, I think there's real value here in the Patriots at -4.5. I think they're going to be able to run the football well in this game as well, so I'm going Ramondre Stevenson, 50-plus rushing yards, and anytime touchdown, and the market for Jared Stidham's passing yards is really going up. I think he's going to struggle, so I'm taking him under his passing yards at 200.5. That's 7-1 odds on that parlay boost. And get this, with DraftKings, they've got your back this postseason with early exit protection. So if a player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down, like in mine, Ramondre Stevenson, they got your back in the first half. He goes down, you can still get paid in cash. And DraftKings got great live betting options as well. And they've got some profit boosts out there for this weekend as well for the AFC and NFC championship games. So download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code TANNER. That's code TANNER to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
On ESPN.
Big save on one end, tie game on the other.
Tonight, Blues and Stars. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN. Sports Center.
Blues ready themselves for round 2 versus Stars. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 7, St. Louis and Dallas Lockhorns for the second time this season, American Airlines Center style. Back on October 18th, STL prevailed 3-1, albeit downtown. Jim Montgomery's group currently sitting 31 points behind division-leading Colorado. College hoops afternoon action awaiting 24th-ranked SLU. 4:30 marks that Billiken St. Bonaventure tip-off time. Tomorrow, Mizzou battling Oklahoma while Illinois visits number 4 Purdue. Sunday, NFL-wise, conference title games featuring New England, Denver, plus LA, Seattle. This SportsCenter update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Made by Mike McKenna. How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Collier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the former NHL goalie, the man that is going to be a friend of many today out at Macadoodles. He is Mike McKenna joining us here on the show. Mike, how you doing, man?
I love it. I've been aggregating friends all morning, brother. It's going to be Snowmageddon, and we're ready for it at Macadoodles.
We are coming off of yet another Blues loss, Mike, as we talk on a Friday.
Mike.
Well, guys, can we just remember last week when everything was great? Please. They had won a game. We came on and talked, and it was just pure bliss in Wisconsin with youth hockey. And here we are 2 losses later. So
I try and do that on post-game, Mike, and then I get yelled at for being a homer, and then I get paid by the Blues and things like that. So,
yeah, I get it. But, I mean, like, look at it this way. Not great against Edmonton. Just wasn't. But when you look at the game against Winnipeg, I mean, that was not a terrible game from the Blues. It was not great, but it was more of a battle of special teams and goaltending versus the problems that you faced against Edmonton where there were holes all over the ice and they couldn't plug the dike. So, I mean, it's just what we've talked about all season. The inconsistency, the up and down play, it can come down to little details, and that's what it was against Winnipeg.
All right, Mike, I do want to ask you a question. We're going to get into this later on in the show, but I wanted to get your perspective, and it's more big picture because just to be totally candid, I don't know how much of the minutia we really need to get into. I think we have a pretty good idea of what this team is. This might be a stupid question, and you can yell at me if you feel that way. How much of this is on Jim Montgomery in your estimation, Mike?
Oh, that's a good question. I would hesitate to put all of this on one person, especially a coach. Sure. I would certainly put some of it on Jim Montgomery. I mean, everybody is important to this. I think when you have to play the hand that you're dealt, you only have so much to work with, which I do think the team going into this season was constructed with some what if and some hope rather than a we know and we're going to go get it. But I do think that, especially systematically, something has been off with this team. Because even with lesser players or inexperienced players, you can generally get more out of them defensively, especially in front of one goaltender, especially Jordan Binnington, for whatever reason. And how the wild mood swings. Remember, at the beginning of the year, they couldn't win at home. Now they can't win on the road. You know, where are we right now? And that's the part for me. It's not the coach's job to motivate. It's the coach's job to make sure that structure is in place. Players know what to do, where to be. I give Jim Montgomery credit for making decisions to switch up. I mean, they went from zone defense to man. I will argue I still don't like that decision. I never will. That's me as a goaltender. I'm sorry. I've fought coaches on that before, so that's just my opinion. But I do wonder, though, if you hadn't stuck to your guns and stayed with one system, if it might have been a little bit easier. That's the portion I would look back in retrospect and wonder if that could have helped the St. Louis Blues, and that is a coaching decision.
Mike, going to that Winnipeg game, and it's not just Winnipeg, it's been all season. Like, this team creates offense. I remember the first 2 months of the season, we were talking about how the analytics, the deeper numbers were saying that the Blues were generating some of the best chances in the game. They just couldn't finish, and they couldn't, of course, get stops from their goaltender or better defensive play. When you watch this team play, and I think we've talked about this before, that they just don't have that killer on the ice. Do you still look at this and say they just don't have guys that can finish? Kyrou, Buchnevich haven't done it. Snuggerud, Dvorsky haven't been there yet. Or are there more issues than just that?
I do, for sure. Don't want to understate how much missing Dylan Holloway for half the season has hurt this club. He really was a shot in the arm for the Blues. Last season, especially for me, I felt as though the energy and not just the energy, but really the strength that he played with, like a super strong on the puck guy, like wide stance, protected, open up ice for teammates. He plays a type of game that's a little bit unique in that way, in today's world at least. And so I think that's really hurt, but like this team doesn't have the offensive players straight up. Like, look at the team they're going to play against tonight. And I looked into this beforehand out of the fun of it, and they're going up against Dallas. Okay, Blues top scorer this year, Robert Thomas, 33 points in 42 games. Okay, Buchnevich, second leading scorer, 25 points in 50 games. Your first line winger has a half a point a game pace. You have a defenseman third at that same pace almost. And you look at Dallas, they have 5 players with more points than the Blues leading scorer. 5. And 3 of those are under the age of 26. So is this a drafting thing? Is this a development thing? Is it a pure luck? I don't know. But Dallas has the players. And the guy that's number 1 on the sheet right now is a guy that they traded a boatload to get, Mikko Rantanen, and he is producing. It wasn't just Nathan McKenna. So I think, again, it just shows having the willingness to go out and make a big trade can really pay off for a franchise.
Mike, you know this because you've been in the rooms. You've seen the process of development for these players. When somebody says, maybe their development isn't proper, what does that mean for hockey players?
Well, we just saw the coach in Springfield get fired. So I don't know what to make of that. I know Steve Ott's headed there. It tells me people aren't happy with what's happening in the minor leagues. And that doesn't happen, guys. Coaches in the American League and the Iron League, as we used to call it, they don't get canned very often. So maybe that has something to do with it. I can only read into it because I don't have insider knowledge. But I do think that the Blues players that have come up, Dvorsky has been good in spurts. Snuggerud, who, honestly, guys, does he have to start in the NHL? I know this is retrospect stuff because he looked so good at the end of last season. There's no denying that, but it was such a limited size. There is a reason why teams put players in the American Hockey League. Mikko Rantanen, who we just talked about, Colorado had him in the American Hockey League to start, So I'm not sure here. The pipeline for the Blues with young talent has been a little bit bare for a while, especially top-end talent, and that probably deserves a pretty hard glance at.
We're talking to Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN. Mike, I found it interesting what you said about the Stars and their willingness to trade for Mikko Rantanen and to make that big move. Do you think the Blues' unwillingness to do that and their reliance on this idea of pack mentality has led them to where we are today?
I would say that's maybe a part of it. I'm not sure if that's the mentality with the trade market, because I'm not sure the Blues have had pieces that were enticing enough for other teams to make a big trade. So think about the Matthew Tkachuk trade to the Florida Panthers. And in retrospect, looks terrible for the Flames. But at the time, Jonathan Huberdeau was coming off a 10-point season. It was his best ever. He looked phenomenal. Mackenzie Weegar was a point-producing defenseman, not a great defensive defenseman. We were teammates. I love that guy. He's an offensive defenseman. And there was more to that trade. But when it first went down, it was like, wow, Calgary's getting a lot here, a pick and Huberdeau and the rest. Well, who got the best player out of the deal? That's really what these things come down to. And I'm just not sure that – I mean, the Blues don't have a 110-point player like Jonathan Huberdeau was that year. You know, they don't have a great defensive prospect other than guys that are locked up. Broberg, they traded – I mean, great play for the Blues to go out and make a play to get him and Holloway off of, putting out the offer sheets. But I just don't think they have the horses to make that big trade. I don't know what you'd give up other than a huge amount of picks and maybe a roster at the most. They just haven't had that. And that goes back to development and drafting.
Mike, on the defensive side for the Blues, when you look at what they have at the NHL level, when you look at they have in the minor leagues, and then, what they've drafted in terms of Adam Jiricek and a couple of other guys that are playing juniors hockey, do you think the Blues have the makings or the infrastructure of defensemen that can win at the NHL level?
Well, we hope so, but the problem is we're not going to see, and I shouldn't say problem, let's just say the reality of it, is that you're not going to see those players really be at the prime of their game for another 3 to 5 years, a fair amount of them. Jiricek, he looks like a world beater right now. That is exciting. What we saw at World Juniors, just phenomenal. But then you look at defense and who's coming along here. You do have some other kids from World Juniors. You got Lindstein who's coming along and others that are pretty exciting. But we're still years away. So that's kind of when you're in win now mode, or you thought you were in win now mode, can you be patient enough to hang on to these players, or are you going to go for a shot in the arm? I would argue the Blues really need to keep their defensive prospects, even more so than anything offensive. Defense is everything in today's sport in the NHL. Defense drives your offense. And if you don't have defensemen that can move the puck, you're in trouble. So jury's out on Mayu, but I do think some of these other players that are World Juniors and just coming out in first year have a real shot at making a difference.
Mike McKenna joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. He's the former NHL goalie. He joins us on behalf of Macadoodles. If you feel like you're going to be stuck inside all weekend long, and it sure appears that that's going to be the case, I would get yourself over to Macadoodles as quickly as possible today. Mike, when they walk through the door, what can they expect?
I would agree with that statement. Let's get on over here. We got a couple things going. So I have 2 of these bundles left. I just got a little bit of Fortaleza Blanco in the building. I've got 2 bottles of that. If you purchase a bottle of Cascajuin tequila, funny name, but delicious tequila, you can have a Fortaleza Blanco at $69.97. That is a hot deal because we don't get those very often. I also have a raffle going now for an Old Fitz 9-year bottle in bond. That's a super limited item. Our barrel pick of Larceny, which is delicious. Big old vanilla bomb, cinnamon, creme brulee. There will only be 20 tickets available. So if you buy a bottle of our Larceny barrel pick, you get a ticket for the Old Fitz 9. Again, there's only 20 tickets available. That's a great odds on that. Otherwise, we have plenty of wine stacked up and ready to go. We've got several twofers in the building right now. And the THC section, man, has been really hot in January. People doing dry January. We have over 75 different kinds of those drinks now, from 2 milligrams up to 100 milligrams per can. So you can spend the night on the couch, or you can go to the moon. You take your pick, fellas. We got it here at Macadoodles, just north of the Page Extension at Bryan and Feisey Road.
Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Stay safe out there this weekend. Try to keep yourself warm. We'll talk with you again next week. Yeah, agree. Everybody be safe. See you at the rinks this weekend, hopefully. Got it. That's Mike McKenna joining us as he does each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. You could be stuck in the house, or you could go to the moon. Your choice. What a freaking on the couch, depending on your milligram dosage. Either way, you're going to the moon. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to them for Ask Us Anything next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
Ready for action, hockey fans? BetMGM, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is giving players another reason to lace up and hit the ice this season. BetMGM is adding extra excitement to the goals, the checks, the faceoffs, and the breakaways with special promotions, new features, and more. Log in throughout the season to find odds boost tokens, no sweat tokens, and parlay boost tokens in your account to amplify your winnings. Enjoy enhanced product features like dark mode too. We have lots in store between now and when the new champions are crowned, so log into BetMGM, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, all throughout the hockey season to see what's new. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Missouri only. Existing customer offer. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards vary and expire in 7 days. Please gamble responsibly.
Open up your 101 app for your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Golf Expo, coming up January 30th through February 1st at the St. Charles Convention Center. Enjoy free lessons, instructional seminars, a first look at the newest clubs, special skill contests, and much more. Enter to win that 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Golf Expo now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
I just got a message from my son's daycare.
Yep.
It says the following. At snack today, Luca kept saying, "Here come the Blues!" And it sounded like he was a sports announcer. He also told us that he is now a Blues hockey player. So
I like the optimism.
There's that.
Here come the Blues.
Last night he fell asleep with his puck on his chest and his stick in his hand.
What a legend.
We've all been that tired before.
What a legend.
No, he was in his crib. Would not go to bed without them. So he needed it. Hockey is life, man.
Look, my baby needs her Wonder Woman stuffed animal or a teddy bear, and your baby needs a puck and a stick to go to bed. To each his own. What a legend.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now. T-Bone, I don't think this one is for you. You can tell me if you disagree. From the 618, what's the best part of marriage, in your opinion?
Yeah, not for me.
No, T-Bone?
Yeah, I got no tips and tricks.
I mean, not to get super cheesy with it, but you got your best friend with you all the time. Like, that's my thing. Like, I got my best friend no matter what. And it's been that way since we dated, back when we were like 16 years old. So that for me is it.
I made a really tough decision in 2019. I got offered what at the time was a dream job for me in Kansas City to go back home and work on the show, actually, that I grew up listening to with Carrington Harrison. And said, hey, this is right around Christmas time. It's like, hey, we've got an opportunity coming open. It would be the producer for the afternoon show. Would you be interested? Took the opportunity. And I told Kara, like, I've got to take this. So Kara stayed in St. Louis. She was kind of new at her job at the time. Didn't want to leave it after just a couple of years. So I went to Kansas City. At the time, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, but we had been together for like 6 years. The expectation was, eventually we'll get married, but this is something we're going to have to be long distance for a little while. About 3 months in, I came to the conclusion, and it was very clear to me, because of what Alex just said, none of this really fulfills me without having Kara with me.
Yep.
It's like this celebration of the wins, her being there for me when there's stuff that goes wrong. All of that is the best part of marriage. The highs and the lows, getting to be there for each other, the good and the bad. That's the best part of marriage.
There's a way that it goes. There's a way that it goes when something good or something bad happens to me. I make 3 phone calls. My first phone call is my wife. My second phone call is my dad. My third phone call is my mom.
There you go.
And it's just always been that way for me. And there was a stretch where Katie and I were broken up when she was working in Disney World and I was here. It was just tough, long distance. And we both realized that 6 months sucked. And so when she came back to St. Louis, we got back together, and then we went on to get engaged. So, and then the other part of this is still the kids. Like, when you have kids with your wife or husband, man, it is fun getting to see their personalities come through.
From the 314, T-Bone, real quick on this question. What's the best part of marriage? BK, well, she took away my dream, and I resent that. Resent her for that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
No, I the other part of that story, just real quick.
The other part, this means I got to undig myself out of that hole.
No, I'll just dig it a little further. I was offered an opportunity to be the midday host in Kansas City. I had to tell them no, because I knew at the time I would be moving back here to St. Louis. That was in like May of 2019. And I was waiting for the opportunity here. That didn't come open until January of the next year. So I was just waiting. I was willing to take like overnight gigs, whatever, just to get back to St. Louis to be able to make it work. So no, I wanted this. This is what I wanted out of my life, T-Bone. Sorry.
Very good. I was curious, where BK and I rank on the phone call list? Or 4 or 5?
5-6 probably.
5-6. Okay.
Well, according to Luca, he'd be number 1.
Yeah.
You guys have maybe cracked the top 10.
Would I make the old-fashioned speed dial?
No. How many were on speed dial? Wasn't there 6?
Right?
Was
or
there
10, because Zero, I guess Zero had one
10.
too.
No.
Wow.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You might.
If you want me to be honest, the only reason you'd be on my speed dial too,
because you don't have 5 others.
But you'd be the closest people in an emergency I would need probably help from.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's true. The good part about being named Alex Ferrario is I'm always the number 1 person in people's contact list. The amount of butt dials I have had over the last 5 years of people I haven't spoken to be like, oh, I don't know how I called you. I know how. Change my damn name on your phone.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything from the 618. Today marks my 20 years as a cop. Should I retire and go to the moon with Mike McKenna?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
First of all, thanks for being a cop for 20 years. Second of all, absolutely. Call Mike up.
From Moistus Alou.
Gross.
What are your plans for Snowmageddon?
Blues hockey tomorrow.
Go to UMSL tomorrow. Call a basketball game. Yeah, I don't really have No plans
Yeah.
for me. I'm
I'm
just
watching
sit it
football
out.
on Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wait it out.
I've
Go
already
through,
been
get the
told by
roads
my
cleaned
wife
up.
I'm not going outside with my girls because it's going to be too cold. So
Ah.
I'm going to have to convince her to
Yeah, that's a
or
shame.
I'll have to sneak my oldest out with
yeah,
me.
let's go have fun. Come on.
We go out for a little bit.
Tomorrow.
Okay, let's have fun.
Oh, Katie won't go out
Let's
there.
see here. Feels like temperature tomorrow will be -6.
They invented clothing for that.
It'll be
The
fine.
high tomorrow for the feels like temperature is 4 degrees.
They'll be fine.
That's the
They'll be
high.
Ooh,
They'll be
it's
fine.
not 0 at least.
They'll be fine. Honestly, what I'll be doing is I'm going to probably be shoveling my driveway tomorrow night and into Sunday morning.
From the 314, are you guys energy drink people or do you regard them as sewage? I do not like energy drinks. I love coffee, so I'm not opposed to like stimulants. I'm all for it. But yeah, no, I think they're gross.
I lived on energy drinks in college, and I'm surprised I don't have brain damage because of how much I drank those. And now occasionally I'll have one, mostly like when I'm stuck at the station and I don't have many options, and I'll go grab something for a Blues game, 9:30 games. That's typically when they get busted out. I drank one actually 2 weeks ago for the first time, probably multiple years. I was shaking by the time I started second intermission.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not good. I don't like this.
The one energy drink that I have had over the last, like, honestly, 10 years is when we were at the hospital while Kyrou was going through labor. I had one of those Celsius drinks.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, wasn't terrible.
Oh, yeah.
But
Try and
that's
sell
the
you
only
on
thing
those
that I've
where
had.
it's like, oh, these aren't, they're healthy for you. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
It's like Subway compared to McDonald's. It is a healthy alternative.
Still not healthy.
Is it a healthy thing for you to eat? Well,
Yeah,
no,
it's like
but
T-Bone's
it's better.
health. It's like T-Bone's health. You know, your tomato
Hey,
wraps.
slow steps, man.
Yeah,
Slow
those
steps.
tomato wraps are what takes care of you.
A bacon chicken ranch
There's tomatoes.
wrap
Turkey,
is
turkey,
better than a burger.
There's tomatoes.
Is it the best thing? No, but it's better.
We wanted to live life on all the best things. Life
salad
would suck,
with
let's be
A
honest.
salad with chopped up bacon bits and heavy ranch dressing, probably healthier.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. But next, Jordan Kyrou's market might be able to net the Blues quite a serious return. Alex got an interesting take on this earlier today as the guys were able to speak with Jeff Marek, NHL insider for Daily Faceoff. We'll let you hear part of his answer to that question next here on 101 ESPN.
This is Tyler Tucker, and today is Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Some news to pass along from the NFL before we get to the Blues. Phillip Rivers interviewing today for the Bills head coaching job.
Oh, hell yeah.
Josh Allen is sitting in on interviews. They apparently have a very close relationship.
Oh, boy.
We'll see what comes of this.
Phil has just got to make sure that insurance is just continuing to come in for all those kids.
Phil, man.
That's smart. And you're the backup quarterback for the Bills if something ever happens to Josh.
News in baseball as Sir Anthony Dominguez has agreed to terms on a 2-year, $20 million contract, with the Chicago White Sox. When you can go out there and add a 2-year deal for a bullpen arm on big money deals as a 31-year-old and your team's going to be terrible, you just got to do it. All right, let's talk about Jordan Kyrou, Alex. Earlier today, you had the pleasure of talking with our friend Jeff Marek. We'll play that full interview coming up today at 1 o'clock. But when you guys had this conversation, you brought up Jordan Kyrou and what his market could look like. Here's what Jeff Marek had to say.
My initial response to that is no, I don't think so. I think this is a player that probably needs a change of scenery at this point in his career. But with that kind of speed and that kind of potential, I still look at Kyrou and say, A, he probably needs a change of scenery. And B, I wonder about teams, and maybe the Washington Capitals are the obvious one, teams that need an injection of speed into their lineup. I look at those two and say there could be a deal there. When you look at the Washington Capitals, Caps in the offseason were right there trying to sign Nikolai Ehlers away from the Winnipeg Jets when he went free agent. The Carolina Hurricanes offered the extra year. They ended up getting him. But I don't think that that's changed Washington's desire to get faster. They'll need that element in their lineup, and that's why I look at Jordan Kyrou and I say, I don't think they stopped giving up the search for speed. I wonder if there could be a fit there between St. Louis and Washington.
When he said that, I didn't think Washington, but it makes total sense because they were not only in on Nikolai Ehlers, they were trying to trade for a couple of different wingers. They were trying to get Peterka from Utah last year. They're trying to keep a competitive team while also transitioning a little bit younger because Alex Ovechkin is not going to be there forever. And so, I look over at Washington's cap space. They've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's going to be on LTIR for the rest of the season. So that gives them about $7.1 million in cap space. They've got you're probably going to have to take on some type of cap casualty for this season. Like they got a guy named Brandon Duhaime, who's $2 million, and he's a UFA after this year. But to me, and we'll hear more of this when we talk with Jeff Marek at 1 o'clock, he talks about the need to continue to upgrading defense for the Blues. I look at Washington. They're not trading any of their NHL players, but they drafted a kid in the second round a couple of years ago by the name of Cole Hudson, who, for those that might hear that, he's the brother of Lane Hudson, who is in Montreal, and he's playing in college right now for Boston University. He was a second-round pick. He's putting up better numbers than what his brother did when he played in college. The other one that I would say keep an eye on, Buffalo has been in the rumor mill nonstop over these last couple of months that have been searching for a top 6 wing talent and are willing to trade defensemen. And the speculation has been, is it Bo Byram, Owen Power? My gut tells me it's going to be Owen Power because they like the offense that Bo Byram is providing. Here are the options that I would be looking at if I'm moving Jordan Kyrou. I got a 21-year-old defenseman who plays the left side who is going to be playing in the NHL next year. I got a 23-year-old defenseman who is a former first overall pick who is making $8 million for the next 7 years, who is also 23 years old. That's what you're trading Jordan Kyrou for. And honestly, I think Jeff's right. Kyrou might need a change of scenery. He's a great player. He might go on to be a 35, 40-goal scorer for another team. But I'm going to look back on it if they move him and say, I don't know if he was ever going to do that again in St. Louis.
And the big thing for me, they may regret a Kyrou trade. They may regret a Robert Thomas trade when we look back on it just by the numbers. I don't even think it's also just a change of scenery for those guys either. I think it's time for the Blues to do something different, right?
They need a change of scenery, yeah.
You know, doing the same thing over and over again is called insanity. And what have we seen with this core when you run it back with them? They haven't won outside of a 20-game stretch, really, from last season, 25-game stretch. So, yes, there is a chance that if you do move a Jordan Kyrou, whether it's at the deadline or in the offseason, or a Robert Thomas, that in 5 years we look back on it and go, man, Blues missed out on that trade. Look at what Thomas or Kyrou is doing for their other team. They're the guys that we thought they were going to be. You know what? Sometimes you got to just change it up, right? I mean, you've talked about this with Vince Dunn. A lot of guys, it doesn't necessarily work in their first stop. And I wouldn't even say it hasn't worked for them here. This has really been the first year it hasn't worked for them. They've both been pretty good players in their time here in St. Louis. But at some point, you just have to look at what your core is and say, it's not good enough. It's not the kind of core we thought it was going to be. We need to move on no matter what.
And you're also transitioning from a 27-year-old who hasn't hit to a 21, 22, 23-year-old who fits that DNA of where the team is at. And I think a lot of people would ask two questions. One, is he going to accept a trade there? I don't know. I mean, Washington is a contender, so would you go to play for a contender? Buffalo is playing better. They might be in contention window, and he's also good buddies with Tage Thompson. So maybe the second one is, how do you replace that offense? You already stink at offense. You replace it by, one, Justin Carbonneau next year, two, the draft this upcoming season. You're going to draft some type of forward to play in that position. Or if you go down the path of continuing to dismantle the core and you trade Robert Thomas, well, then maybe you're looking for that goal scorer in the Robert Thomas trade. But Jeff Marek is one of the most in-tune guys, so him saying that makes a lot of sense, and I think there's some players on both sides that would make sense for St. Louis.
Yeah, that when I heard Washington, and he didn't bring up, like, hey, you know, if I was to he's clearly hearing something.
Yeah.
He doesn't just bring this up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he brought up what the return could be as well seems to indicate to me, hey, there might be something here. This might be something that actually makes sense for both sides. Now, I don't know how they make it work money-wise. They do have $7 million right now because Pierre-Luc Dubois is currently on IR. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to take on some type of contract to make the money work, which, I mean, you're probably taking on with that LTI, or you're taking on a couple $1 million. The problem is I don't know who they're going to trade on that front because they're trying to contend, but do they trade a third or a fourth line player who's making $2 million? They've got like I mentioned, Brandon Duhaime. They've got Sonny Milano. They've got guys who are making $2 million and then are UFAs, and you're replacing that with Jordan Kyrou. And next year they'll be able to make it work because Alex Ovechkin is a UFA, and if he returns, probably going to command less just to be a part of the team that takes a shot at winning another cup.
Is Pierre-Luc Dubois expected to play again this year?
I don't believe so, but if he is, it's not till towards the end of the season.
Okay, because if that's the case, they can make it work money-wise.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the season, you wouldn't have to take on the full
He's expected
Jordan
to return
Kyrou.
March or April. He had an abdomen muscle surgery.
That's in case it becomes more complicated, but
yeah. If they decide, you know what, let's just keep him out this year, let's make sure he's fully healthy either for the postseason or for next season, they could make this thing work in season as a trade, and that's something I wasn't sure the Blues would be able to find.
Buffalo can make it work too.
That's the kind of return I would be interested in, is a Cole Hudson.
Yeah.
That's what I would be targeting if I'm the Blues in this kind of a deal for Jordan Kyrou. A lot of people are bringing up the Shane Wright thing. I'm just not interested. I don't think that does nothing for me.
Yeah.
Shane Wright, to me, it's early. Maybe he becomes more than this, but he appears to be a middle six center. Guys, the Blues are flush with middle six players. They need upside. They need to aim for stud-level talent. They are in a spot that is very similar. It reminds me so much of what the Cardinals are going through right now, where they're lacking that star-level talent. And if you keep operating in the same way and you keep going for high-floor, low-ceiling players, well, you're going to get a lot of high-floor, low-ceiling players. And to me, Shane Wright fits into that criteria. So I'm not particularly interested in him at all.
Yeah, I was going to try and defend it yesterday. And I think Shane Wright needs a change of scenery,
Agreed.
much like Dylan Holloway needed a change of scenery. And it's actually pretty similar to where they just weren't used a lot. They were used in a role that wasn't best suited for them. But I also don't know if I'm in the position, if I'm the Blues, to go out there and try and go after another guy for a change of scenery. If I'm going to trade a Kyrou or a Thomas, I want a guy that is still developing and projecting. And maybe Shane Wright becomes a top six guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a number one center, but does he come a number two? If I'm the Blues, I look at this saying, as Doug Armstrong loves to always use this phrase, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm trading Kyrou for a Dalibor Dvorsky. I already have a Dalibor Dvorsky. I need to fill a void that's either a goal scorer on the wing or I need to fill a void that my defense is going to need in the top 4 next year.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That was just one piece of the interview that Alex and T-Bone did earlier today with Jeff Marek. As I was out having coffee with my wife this morning, we do that on Friday, so I do appreciate these guys holding down that interview for us earlier today. If you want to hear the full thing, we will play it for you in its entirety coming up today at 1 o'clock. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 1986 at the Forum in L.A., the Blues would take down the Kings to win their 20th of the year. Kings would score first shorthanded, but then the Blues would score the next 4. Mark Hunter back-to-back power play goals, Joe Mullen on the power play, and Rick Mahar shorthanded. Jim Fox, Dave Taylor would score in the 3rd for L.A., and Rick Wamsley would earn the victory.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
TMA? Then nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Let's start with the news that we passed along in the last segment. Philip Rivers interviewing today for the Bills head coaching search. Your thoughts, Alex?
I guess you got to interview everybody. If they're making Josh Allen a part of these interviews, which also tells me they're telling Josh Allen, we want you to help decide on this. Josh likes Philip Rivers, thinks he's a good coach, wants to bring him in. I wouldn't hire this guy. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, man, I've got like a 3-year window to try and win a Super Bowl with Josh Allen and potentially being able to put a competitive team together. I don't know if I'm going with an inexperienced coach for my team. I saw that they interviewed Mike McDaniel. I'd be more likely to hire Mike McDaniel than I would Philip Rivers.
Other coaches they've interviewed, according to ESPN.com, include Joe Brady, their current offensive coordinator, Brian Dable, their former offensive coordinator. They've also interviewed Lou Anarumo, and they have interviews scheduled with former Bills assistant Anthony Lynn and defensive coordinator for the Dolphins this past season, previously with the Ravens, Anthony Weaver. Those are guys that they are either interviewing or have interviewed already. T-Bone, I think I've got a little bit of a, I don't know, contrarian take, I suppose, on this. I think there's a chance that Rivers would be a great head coach in the NFL. The guy is one of the best football minds of the last 25 years. He is an unbelievable leader. He has a relationship already with your quarterback. And it's not as though this is a great cycle. I mean, listen to the names that I just mentioned among the candidates for this job. Now, I think maybe they're trying too hard to hire Josh Allen's buddy instead of hiring a coach that will get the most out of the Buffalo Bills. That should be the criteria you're looking for. But if this is the pool, I think Philip Rivers is an intriguing candidate to me. And maybe I'm alone in that regard, but I'd be curious. I don't hate this as much as it seems like everybody else does.
Here's my question. How does he unlock more potential for Buffalo that Sean McDermott didn't?
I guess he brings in the, what's his name, in Indianapolis offense, and maybe you think that would bring Steichen.
Maybe you still don't have the weapons. I mean, Josh Allen's unlocked, man.
But nobody else could do that.
No, but
maybe the coach isn't the thing that unlocks it, and you do just need the personnel. Well, that goes back to the GM, and maybe you should have fired him, but I can't do that. That's a sunk cost now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of bringing in Philip Rivers. I think when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, it's not time to experiment with a guy that hasn't even been a coach in the NFL. And I'm not even just saying a head coach. I mean a coordinator at any level, right? I agree with what you said
high school
early
coach last year. Worked out for the Cardinals.
Yeah, okay.
Talking about the St. Louis Cardinals when they hired Mike Matheny, just to be clear.
He was a high school coach?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree with what you said, though. Like, I think they're playing too much into Josh Allen's hands. It's cool if you want to say, hey, Josh, you can be a part of these interviews and you can sit in and see what we're asking and get your vibe for it. We'll take your opinion on the matter. He can't be the guy that single-handedly drives who the hire is for the Buffalo Bills, and that's what this is kind of feeling like. This is kind of the buddy-buddy of Josh Allen, who's going to be the one that ends up selling him the most on this vision. Man, the organization's got to do what's best for the organization, right? GMs have got a GM, coaches got to coach, and players got to play. Josh Allen can't be that guy that's helping make these final decisions. I think Rivers would be he might end up being a great head coach at the NFL. I think he's got to do his dues first before he can just come in and take over the head coaching job. I just don't see that working out, especially for the Bills.
Man, why? Why does he need to do that?
I think he still needs to learn the ebbs and flows of what it's like to be a coach in the NFL, right? Like
I think he kind of was a coach last year for the Colts. I think
he knows. I think he's got a pretty good idea of what this is going to entail. Now, high school football is obviously quite different than the NFL level, and I'm not going to pretend as if it's not. But I'm not sure there's any if you're an NFL quarterback and you're the quarterback at the level that Rivers was, or at the level that like right now Josh Allen is, or Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, I think those guys have a pretty good idea of what it takes to be a coach on a day in, day out basis. The other thing is that's a big part of this interview is Josh or Philip, do you understand what the rigors are of this job? Do you understand what's going to be required of you? What is your practice plan? What is your training camp plan? What does your staff look like? Are you going to have enough contacts around the league to be able to fill out a really good staff? Is that something you're prepared to do? And if so, what is your plan? If you don't have all of those things ready to go right now, then you can't be an NFL head coach. But if he has a plan written out for all of this stuff and he's able to coherently come up with that and describe it to you as the owner, I don't know, man. I don't know that he needs to put in his dues the way that, like any of us, the way that we did as radio hosts. Like, hey, man, there are some people that are ready to go for this.
To me, and I don't subscribe to that theory either. I think you put in his dues when you play quarterback in the NFL as long as you've played. I just don't think it makes sense for a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl right now to go get a guy who has not coached at the NFL level. Like, this feels a lot like when the Colts hired Jeff Saturday. And it was like, wait a minute, what?
At least that team was a disaster.
Yeah, they were. But still, it's like you're getting an inexperienced coach who may know the ins and outs of the NFL, but this team needs to win a Super Bowl now.
If you were the Cardinals, I could get how you get here.
Yeah,
right?
if the Dolphins. I get the Dolphins doing this.
You just look at this and you go, man, we don't really know where we're going. We might as well take a flyer on a guy that we think could be a good head coach. I'm kind of with you. If I'm Buffalo, man, I'm going for guys that have experience in the league and have connections and doing stuff.
Who's that guy, though, in this cycle that you think is a really good head coaching candidate?
I mean, they were late to the party because I think Stefanski, Harbaugh would have made a ton of sense for him.
I think Mike McDaniel, you've talked about it. I think he's got a chance to it. I don't think he's a good enough coach that could do that, but he's got a chance with a better roster. I don't think this cycle has those guys like last cycle.
That's why I think it's interesting.
I don't think it makes sense bringing in a guy that you've never seen do it at the level of being a head coach.
A lot of these
I don't think you can afford to fail now, though, if you're Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't think it will fail with Josh Allen. That's my thing. I think if you have Josh Allen, I would actually go the opposite direction of what you guys are saying. I think when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback, it allows you the opportunity to bet on the upside. It gives you that fallback of, well, if nothing else, we've got the quarterback in place. And we know that's going to give us a pretty high ceiling. I think that's a really intriguing hire for them.
I think the first poor decision.
It's going to get a lot of criticism, but I like it.
The first poor decision he makes that results in a loss, I think that's when people turn on it quickly. And if you're not going further in the playoffs than you have in years past, year one is automatically a failure.
Mahomes Longbody says Brian Flores would be his option. I love Brian Flores. I think he's a really good coach. It seems like everybody hates him.
Well, and it makes sense with the quarterback stuff.
He seems like an a-hole. If that's the case, I guess that guy's just not going to get a head coaching job again.
That's what I meant by what does Phillip Rivers unlock? Like, I think you need to go get a guy that makes either your defense better or unlocks the potential of the weapons around Josh Allen.
What if Rivers can do that? What if he's got a plan that he's like, hey, this is what my offense is going to look like. Here's why it will work for Josh. Here's what it's going to do for Josh. I can coach that guy harder than anybody because I could relate to him on a level that nobody else can that you're going to hire here.
Then it looks like a genius move.
Exactly.
But if I'm the Bills, I can't afford to take that risk because if it fails, I just wasted another year of Josh Allen when I could have won a Super Bowl.
But all of these guys can fail. That's the reality. Like, Dable could fail. I think will fail, most likely. Somebody on the text line said, why is he better than Dable? Because I don't know that Dable's very good at this. Dable had an opportunity to be the head coach of the Bills, had one good season, and then it just cratered. And it's not just because of the roster. I also think Dable had kind of worn out his welcome there. It did not seem as though he was connecting as well as he did previously. Mike McCarthy's not a very good NFL coach. Like, we've seen that. He was replaced in Dallas. They got better there because he was gone. He was replaced in Green Bay. They got better the moment that he left. I don't see these great candidates across the NFL. And so if I'm going to aim for taking my team to the next level, because they've been a good team, I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. That's my goal. My goal is not just to get to the playoffs anymore. That's not good enough. I stated that by firing Sean McDermott. The only thing that is considered a success anymore in Buffalo is to get over the top. I think this guy can do it. I'm hiring him. And I understand that comes with criticism. We're all getting fired if this doesn't work anyways. Everybody involved. The owner's the only one that won't. Guess what? The owner can do whatever they want. We clearly saw that at the interview earlier this week. All right, let's continue with some NFL quick hitters. That's the big news in the NFL today. Phillip Rivers interviewing for the job with the Buffalo Bills. Patriots at the Broncos. Earlier today, I was reading over at The Athletic. I love doing this. They have a piece where they interview a bunch of NFL executives to find out, hey, how do you guys think this is going to go? They interviewed 10 of them. 9 of them said the Patriots are going to win this game. One of them had the cojones to say, no, Jarrett Stidham will be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. Have you guys changed at all your stance over the last couple of days on how this is going to go?
No. This is Patriots no matter what. And I get it. His teammates are doing what teammates do. but the amount of commentary of Jarrett Stidham's just as good as Bo Nix. Well, then why didn't Jarrett Stidham start over Bo Nix? Because Bo Nix was better. This is, even if it's not a significant downgrade, it's a downgrade. And you cannot tell me that downgrade is going to be able to go out there and win an AFC championship game.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I don't understand the love for the Broncos at plus 4.5, plus 5.5 where it was. Because I look at Stidham and go, man, that guy's not as good as Bo Nix. I also think we are giving Sean Payton way too much credit for what we think he's going to be able to do with Jarrett Stidham. I like Sean Payton as a head coach. It's not like he's turned Bo Nix into like a top 10 quarterback. He's settled in like 15 to 20, right? He hasn't schemed anything up that makes Bo Nix look like this awesome quarterback.
Did last week.
1 week. Most of the year we were just talking about, okay, we don't trust Bo Nix.
I think
I don't think he's going to be able to do it with Jarrett Stidham.
I do think the playoffs are different. Like, they're a different animal in terms of the game plan that you put together than the regular season is. I think we've seen this especially on the defensive side of the ball. Guys like Steve Spagnuolo, Lou Anarumo, when they are preparing for a playoff game, they do so differently. They throw different wrinkles into the game plan, and I think that's something that we have seen in the past Sean Payton is really good at. My stance has changed a little bit. I'm actually being swayed a little bit in your direction toward the Patriots. And a lot of this is because, man, the Broncos defense hasn't quite played as well lately as it did earlier in the season. They have not been as dominant of a unit. I think the Texans by the end of the season were a better defense than what the Broncos bring to the table. And I just watched a game where the Patriots did not have a good day offensively, but they were able to do enough to beat that team. And I think the offensive performance could look pretty similar for the Broncos this week to what the Texans did a week ago. And Stidham, if he's pressured the way that CJ Stroud was, I do have some concerns about whether or not he's going to make some of those boneheaded mistakes. So I think it'll be close. I don't have as strong of a stance anymore on the Broncos plus 4.5. That was my lean. And now I don't know, man, 24-20, 27-20. That kind of feels like the type of game that I would be expecting.
And let's also call a spade a spade. Picks, and that offensive scheme went up against one of the worst defenses this season in the NFL. And I think the Patriots,
number one pass defense in the league this year.
I think the Patriots defense is significantly better, and I think they get to the quarterback much better than what Buffalo has the ability to do. They're going to pressure Stidham, and I don't trust Stidham under pressure in the pocket.
The Seahawks are taking on the Rams. These were two very different games this season. The first one was like a defensive battle between the two. Neither offense could get a whole lot going. The second one was, I think, 38-37 was the final score.
Yeah. It was really didn't take out till the fourth quarter.
500 yards for Matt Stafford in that game. You remember that big comeback in the fourth quarter? We saw Sam Darnold play some of his best football this season. The Rams defense has really fallen to like middle of the pack in the second half of the season. Meanwhile, that Seahawks defense seems to get better every single week. How you guys feeling going in? The Seahawks, according to the NFL executives, 6 of the 9 said the Seahawks will win this game.
Yep, I would put myself into the Seahawks conversation. Stafford didn't look well at the end of that game, and I don't think the Rams are going to have the ability to just patiently wait and then wait for that offense to open up with Nakua and Devontae like they did in the second half. I don't think you're going to be able to run the ball as well, and I don't think you're going to be able to throw the ball through the air unless Stafford is just elite. So I think the Seahawks defense gets to them, and I'm not sure the Rams are going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, I have a tough time deciding on this one because for the most part of the 12 quarters of late that I've seen Sam Darnold go up against the Rams, 11 of the 12 he's looked like crap. And he had one quarter that he looked really good, and they got all momentum on a punt return. It wasn't even a play that Darnold made. It was a punt return that flipped the momentum, that put that game in their favor. Even had a 2-point play where he threw it backwards and ended up going in his favor. But I lean Seattle because with this Seahawks defense, you almost have to play perfect offensively. And the reason the Rams were in those 2 games earlier this season, Stafford was excellent in them. And you can tell he's a little off in the playoffs. And I think it's partly because he's jammed that index finger or one of the fingers on his throwing hand. And I think when you see the Seahawks, you have to have pinpoint accuracy against them. And you could tell in the Bears game last week, I don't think it was just the cold and the wind. I think there's something wrong with Stafford. He's not been good in the 2 playoff games so far. Devontae Adams, I think, might still be hurt. He's not been very good. Yeah. So I'm relying on Puka and a run game that wasn't all that great in the last contest as well. That's just not the formula for the Rams. So I think Seattle ends up winning this football game.
I'm starting to lean that direction as well. The longer the week has gone on, the more and more I am leaning towards Seattle getting to the Super Bowl and us seeing a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl once again, a repeat of what we saw about a decade ago. It's not the one that I would prefer to see, but it's the one that I think we're probably going to.
Brady, Wilson to May, Darnold, like we all would have seen coming.
Last thing here, according to report, Adam Schefter was just on the Pat McAfee show, said the only 3 names that he's hearing for the Steelers job right now: Shula, the Rams defense coordinator; Weaver, the Dolphins defense coordinator; and Mike McCarthy.
That's for who?
The Steelers head coaching job.
I mean, you're playing to your identity with a defensive-minded coach, but God, don't do Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, just go with Shula or Weaver. If those are the options, go with one of the other two. McCarthy would be such a bad hire.
Terrible.
Do you think this I'm asking generally because I don't really know what to make of if this is the Steelers' choice, or is this kind of how coaches view that job right now? And it is a tough sell, and that's why you're seeing
the
McCarthy.
ownership
Because, like, you think McCarthy, I brought this up to you guys early last week, I think it was, when he kind of started to be rumored about this job. Typically, coaches get 2 tries in the NFL, right? You end up failing at one spot. You probably go be a coordinator for a year. You take a year off, and then somebody gives you a second chance. But then if you fail out the second time, not very often do you see someone get back in unless they're willing to, like, really just take a team-friendly deal, like we saw with Pete Carroll, how he got back with the Raiders. That kind of screams out with McCarthy, where he's just saying, hey, yeah, no, I'll take that job. Don't care what it looks like. Don't care what our vision is. I'm just willing to take this job.
If I'm Mike McCarthy, they don't fire coaches statistically. And 2, I'm the only guy that's going to want to go to a team that doesn't have any appetite for being bad for a couple of years so that they can build themselves a championship contender. All they want is you to win 8 or 9 games and get into the playoffs.
It's weird. He's a Pittsburgh native. That's really the only thing about it that makes sense.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, cool, you had success in Dallas. You had a quarterback and you had an elite receiver.
Really didn't have success.
Well, I mean, that's fair.
You know, I don't get it. It doesn't.
In Pittsburgh's eyes, he had success because they made the playoffs. Whatever year that he was there, that's a success.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, some news from Pete Thamel. Oklahoma is targeting Illinois Deputy Athletic Director Roger Denny to be the next school's AD. So Illinois Deputy Athletic Director expected to be the next athletic director at Oklahoma. Coming up next, is Victor Scott II the Cardinals' future leadoff hitter? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Jamie Rivers here, and it's time for a New Jersey giveaway. We have your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by number 55, Colton Parayko. Enter to win that Colt 55 autographed jersey right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Courtesy of St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by health grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com. St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with the First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues look to reverse fortunes away from Enterprise. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. St. Louis has lost 7 straight road games entering tonight's showdown against Dallas. Puck drop set for 7 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Dallas, standings-wise, finds itself in third place with 65 points. NFL Conference Championship weekend looms. New England will get us started Sunday at 2, featuring a tilt against Denver. We also carry Rams Seahawks around 5:30, roughly 4 hours from now. Hoops-wise, number 24 SLU visits St. Bonaventure. Those Billikens' lone defeat occurred 2 months ago. This Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Nobody at Cardinals winter warm-up had more hype this past weekend than Victor Scott II. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, yesterday over on the Redbird Report, T-Bone and I talked a little bit about Victor Scott, where he's at, what he means for this team build.
I saw that.
And how it all plays into their future and how it plays into his future for 2026. If you want to check out the latest edition of the Redbird Report or latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast, you can check that all out right now at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. As it pertains to Victor Scott II, Zips has his projections for 2026 listed right now. They believe he will hit roughly 225, get on base about 30% of the time, and be pretty well below league average offensively this upcoming year. They've got him as a 77 on the OPS plus. 100 is league average. Anything below that is that percentage below league average. So this would be 23% below league average offensively for Victor Scott.
Oh, man, I can't wait for you to sell this segment to me.
That wouldn't be good. That's
not a good
not
sell.
Thanks, Captain
an
Obvious.
ideal scenario.
Wasn't expecting that.
But they also list the 80th percentile outcome, which basically means, hey, if they take a jump, this is what that would probably look like for the player. And for Victor Scott, that would be hitting 250, getting on base about 32% of the time, and being roughly league average offensively, just a little below. Basically being this year kind of similar to what Mason Wynn was a year ago. That's a kind of offensive season we'd be talking about. And if he gets on base about 32, 33% of the time, you might be talking about 50-plus stolen bases for somebody that has Victor Scott's level of speed. Alex, how does that play into what the Cardinals are and what they can be? Not just for 2026, but beyond. What can Victor Scott represent for this rebuild?
I mean, he can represent a role that if they decide to go into that elite defensive structure, that's how you win baseball games. Kind of like what the Milwaukee Brewers have done. He can also provide the elite base running. I think what that also at least dictates to me from what you said is even if he takes a significant jump, he's just a complimentary piece. It's not anything more than that. And I don't think anybody expected that out of Victor Scott. It was always a complimentary piece. But I think it represents a style that if they're going heavy influence on defense, specifically up the middle, then Victor Scott is the perfect cure for that, also included with the speed. But I think he's still lacking what he will be a great asset to the team if they can find what they're desperate for, and that's that star potential to raise the ceiling of their offense.
Can that be a leadoff hitter, T-Bone?
Probably not. Too low of an on base, in my opinion. I think best case. I said this yesterday on the Redbird Report.
Double leadoff.
Don't want to spoil it. Yeah, basically that's what I said. Like I think that's the best case scenario for him as a guy that hits in the 9-hole, kind of serves as because his on base I don't think would be high enough to be a leadoff hitter.
Agreed.
But he's a guy that would put pressure on a team at the bottom of the order if he gets on base, and then really puts a pressure on a pitcher when you get more toward the meat of your order. But I agree with what Alex said. Like, that would be great if he's able to do it. I'm a little skeptical if he can do it, but it'd be great if he could. It means nothing for the Cardinals unless they develop a star, man. I like, otherwise you just end up in spots that we're talking
Agreed.
about.
Let's step away from that, because
But I don't think
every
you can. That's where it's hard. I don't think you can.
Every conversation about the Cardinals is that they need the star. But you also have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, yes, they need a star. But if let's assume they're going to get that. Like, I don't know how we can, but let's assume that for a second, because I would like to spend a little bit of time actually specifying Victor Scott's role in all of this. What does that mean for him?
He's just a complementary piece. I mean, that's all it is for the Cardinals if they get the star like you're talking about in that scenario. Like, he's the double leadoff. He's the 9-hole hitter. He's the gold glove center fielder. Like, the pieces that are important to winning baseball teams. Like we see, I mean, you brought up the Brewers. They have a ton of guys like this. I'm glad you said them, Alex, because the Brewers have guys that you look at and you go, is that guy really a good baseball player? And then you watch him, he goes, damn, he robbed potentially a run. He got on base, stole second base, and eventually scored because of a base hit. Like, these are the complementary pieces. They're never guys that I would sign to contract extensions. They're probably, you just play them through the ARB system, but they're necessary to have. And it's what you see with teams like for the Nationals, for example. Why are they on a rebuild of a rebuild? They didn't develop complementary pieces for the guys that they had as stars. Like, you can't have one and not the other. And so, yes, he would become I wouldn't call him a pivotal piece, but he would become an important piece to their build.
Bryce Terang last season, not this past one, but the year prior, 254 batting average, 316 on base percentage, and 86 OPS plus. But he had 4 triples, 24 doubles, and 7 home runs, and was elite defensively.
And then what did he do last year?
Last year was 288 batting average with a 359 OPS plus with a 121 OPS plus with a 359 on base percentage. I don't know if Victor Scott's ever going to get to that.
Probably not.
But I look at what Bryce Terang did the year prior. It was a 4.7 WAR type of player. And a lot of that was because he was elite defensively. And he plays a different position defensively. He was second base infield. We're talking about a center fielder. So to your question, BK, what does he represent? He represents what we've seen a lot of with the Cardinals. Gold glove defense, and something that they haven't had a lot of, like high stolen bases. Terang that year had 50 stolen bases. Like, that's what I see Victor Scott. I see high stolen bases, which could score runs for you like Milwaukee does. They, I'm forgetting the proper word, but they manufacture runs with that. Yeah. And you've got gold glove defense that makes your pitching look better.
I think we overestimate how good you need to be in order to be a leadoff hitter in the modern game. Last year, there were only 11 teams in Major League Baseball that their leadoff guys had an on-base percentage above 340. That's a little surprising to me. I'm a little surprised that it's that low. I would have anticipated that it would be a little higher than that. There are about 10 teams in Major League Baseball that have their leadoff hitters somewhere between 330 and 320. And if that's what we're talking about with Victor Scott II, can he be a leadoff hitter? Yeah, absolutely. Why couldn't he be? And his slugging percentage will be lower than what most of these teams are from their leadoff spot. But to get back to what Alex just said, you can manufacture that because the number 1 team in Major League Baseball last season in stolen bases by their leadoff hitter was Philadelphia. How many do you think they had out of their leadoff spot? Just their leadoff hitters, stolen bases on the season.
From Philly, there's no way Schwarber took a ton of bags.
Well, they were number 1 in Major League Baseball from their leadoff spot. I think he was their leadoff hitter most of the season.
How many stolen bases?
30.
Yeah, I was like 35.
36. 36 was number 1 in Major League Baseball. I think Victor Scott can get 50. If he's getting on base at that clip, I think he has that kind of outcome for himself in there.
I guess the question is, do you think he can get on base at that clip?
That's what is necessary. I don't know.
Concerned.
I don't know. I would say I'm betting against it. Yeah. I think the most likely outcome is what T-Bone said. I think he's probably a 9-hole hitter. Good defensively, adds a little bit of speed. You're always wanting a little bit more offensively. And for a good team, he bats 9th, and you just leave him in the lineup because that guy helps you win every day. He makes a winning play every single day, and you're good with it, but he's the last offensive player that you think about. If he can be more than that, and the Cardinals seem to think he can, they also have to sell that because why would you expect anything different? If he can be more than that, and he takes this step that we're talking about, reaches his 80th percentile in 2026, I think he can long-term be a leadoff hitter on a good, capable team It requires those superstars, but everything about this build requires superstars. You can't win in Major League Baseball without them. And so we also have to be able to, especially this year, talk about the individual players and how they fit into all of this if we operate under the assumption that eventually they will, yes, have good 3 and 4 hole hitters. Otherwise, like, yeah, it all craps out.
Well, yeah, they were in a rebuild on top of another rebuild. Let me, and I don't mean this to sound negative towards Victor Scott, but is Victor Scott a player that you're going to be wanting an upgrade from down the road?
Probably.
Like, you're always wanting more from that position. Like, the first thing I think of is Harrison Bader.
I don't think that you would have wanted more from center field if Harrison Bader was also surrounded by the necessary talent.
But I think Cardinals fans were wanting more from Harrison Bader because they thought there was going to be more.
I think some of these guys that have quote-unquote failed in the – well, not from the Cardinals view, but from fans' view, have failed – hasn't been the player failed, it's been the organization failed the player. And they put him in a bad spot.
Exactly.
Because, like Bader, for example, you bring him up. This guy's going to get a 3-year deal. Well, he's hoping for a 3-year deal. He may not get it this offseason.
Might get a 1-year deal.
But he's been around baseball and been a contributing player throughout his career since he left St. Louis. And teams have wanted him, as BK's pointed out before. Contenders have wanted him at the trade deadline. He became a really good baseball player that teams value. But why did we not value him here in St. Louis?
He was supposed to be the solution.
Because the Cardinals made him to be their 5-hole hitter.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if you have Victor Scott hitting in your 5-hole, you're probably a bad baseball
100%.
team. And that's not a shot towards Victor Scott. He's not meant to be doing that, man. He's supposed to be hitting 9 like Bader was, where he was supposed to be in the great version of the National League where pitchers hit, your 8-hole hitter, where he would be the Gold Glove center fielder for you, and you had other guys that would carry the load for you, and he helps make a winning play in a baseball game like twice, 3 times a week, not 6 out of your 7 games in a week like your superstars are supposed to.
Exactly. I think we sometimes ask too much out of some of these guys because they don't have the superstars. If you have superstars, go look at the Dodgers lineup last year, guys. They had players that didn't hit towards the bottom of their order. They did. But you didn't care because they also had Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. Like, those guys, and Mookie Betts, who didn't hit for most of the season, and it wasn't that big of a deal because they had Shohei Ohtani and Will Smith and Freddie Freeman. That makes up for a lot of other potential issues in your life.
To that point, like Tommy Emma was their 9-hole hitter. Remember Tommy Tanks when he got off to the hot start? Guys, he had the worst season of his big league career last year. But we did notice it because he would always make the big plays, and he wasn't asked to hit where he wasn't supposed to.
Just go make winning plays. We'll have these other guys hit the crap out of the baseball. You go make winning plays. Coming up next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
On 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Tonight, Blues and Stars. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Cruz Frozen Custard. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Supposed to trust with this snow projection?
Nobody.
I don't know, but I always
happens.
get different numbers from you when you text me.
Yeah.
Everybody that I look at is saying, well, some of them say somewhere between 2 to 8. Others say 8 to 12. And then there's some that are like, yo, I don't know, 12 to 18.
And those are the people that I'll trust. Like, here's how I treat snow when all of the 18,000 weather forecasters try and give us predictions. The roads are going to be bad, probably. Probably should avoid driving for a couple of days until they're cleared off. And once it falls, we'll find out how many inches came down. That's how we should treat this.
KMOV says 5 to 10.
Yeah.
At what point is it a problem, by the way?
Anything above 3.
Okay.
And if there's ice,
I'll say ice.
I heard sleet today, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm not going to go out in
I would
this.
say, because like depending on where you see, because the other thing I've heard that's confusing is it's not going to compact down, and then some say, well, no, it won't, but then it'll freeze overnight. Like I get confusing reports, and then some are like, it's fluffy white snow, and I'm like, well, that sounds kind of pleasant actually.
Yeah, it is pleasant to go out and run around and play and make snow angels in, not to drive your freaking car in.
John Scores says, I would say somewhere between 0 and 24 inches.
Yeah.
That's generally speaking the projection that I'm
And then
seeing.
the forecasters just raise their hand and say, hey, I was right. I was right. I said 2 to 12.
I think we give them way too much crap because this is hard, man.
Hell yeah, it
You're
is.
predicting the weather. It's really, really hard to do, and stuff changes. Like, we see how it is in sports. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. The Rams and Seahawks play. One of them's going to win. How many points are going to be scored? I don't know. How is it going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to predict that stuff? Good luck.
I would think that's even easier because it's like predicting what humans are doing. This is like predicting like weather elements and moisture that's in the air.
It's the same thing. We predict with analytics, and they predict with their analytics, and both typically fail.
Yeah, and that's not on them. They're doing whatever they can.
No, I blame analytics when things go poorly.
I am just surprised because a lot of the time you'll see, if you go to a weather app, you go to KMOV, you go to wherever it is, they'll have the same idea on what it's going to be projected to be. And then, we'll find out if they're right or not. But this, I have seen wild fluctuations between the low end of what they're expecting and the high end of what they're expecting.
Look,
crazy.
They called for a state of an emergency today. So, all I know is it's going to get bad.
Yeah. And we're even at the point now where there's sometimes where stuff will pop up, like whether it's something random on Twitter or on Facebook, and it's somebody that I don't know, that I don't even know, I don't even know if this is a real projection or not, right? Like, they're on the higher end. Is this guy real? Is this guy full of it? Who am I supposed to believe? So I stick with KMOV and whatever the Weather Channel
Total
says.
side tangent. I hate how I am as an adult now because I used to love snow. Now when I hear it, I freaking get so
I still like snow.
No,
I hate it.
I hate it.
I don't
now.
like ice. Ice, I'm out. But snow, I enjoy it.
I hate it because people are psychotic at grocery stores. People are
True.
crazy on the road. So I'm putting my life at risk when I have to leave, just like their lives are at risk. I hate it. When I was a kid, I didn't have to worry about any of those responsibilities.
And I didn't have to go to work or /school when it snowed.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, Alex and T-Bone took care of an interview that we did earlier today with Jeff Marek, one of the best NHL insiders in the business. Does a show for the Daily Faceoff at the time. They pre-recorded this earlier today. I was getting coffee with my wife, so I appreciate them stepping in and doing that for me. And Jeff Marek, our interview with him will be next here on 101 ESPN.
Snow, and lots of it, folks.
Do you have what it takes to beat the Blues? Tune into BK and Ferrario every Thursday for your shot to take out a member of your St. Louis Blues. And you can win a signed puck and tickets to an upcoming game. Learn more at 101ESPN.com.
Hey, this weekend, it is time to get in on all of the action with the Underdog app. Alex, I checked it out earlier today. 60% profit boost. Woo! Ready to go for me over in the Underdog app. You can get involved in all of the action over on Underdog. Download the app today. Don't forget to use our promo code BKO, and Alex will tell you what you get if you do that. Rams versus Seahawks, Patriots versus Broncos. I've got a couple of plays for this weekend. I like Jarrett Stidham higher on his passing yards. I like Ramondre Stevenson as well to score a touchdown. In the other game, I've got Devontae Adams scoring a touchdown, Kenneth Walker scoring a touchdown, and I think this might be a little lower on Jackson, Smith, and Jigba for his receiving yards. Those are my plays. You can make your own as well over on the Underdog app.
Download it today. Use promo code BKO to score $75. That's right, $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Krugman Law Firm. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Welcome back into BK and Ferrario. Alex Ferrario with you as we now head to the Collier and Thompson hotline to talk it over with one of our favorites here on BK and Jeff Marek, Hockey Insider. He hosts The Sheet Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Central Time over on Off. And we started the lengthy conversation with Jeff talking about the state of the Blues, of course, not well, bottom of the standings. And the Jeff's perspective, how concerning is it seeing a team that low in the standings that was supposed to be on the upside in terms of their expectations?
Well, first of all, I'm not necessarily concerned about the future with the St. Louis Blues, like very quietly, like unless anyone is really paying attention to the draft and the prospects and the players that are on the horizon, you know, Alex Steen is going to be inheriting a really deep prospect pool here. So if the St. Louis Blues, you know, go the route here of starting to sell off some pieces, and I think, you know, ultimately, because, you know, every year at trade deadline, we all wonder about, you know, Braden Shen, for example. This year, I think we're wondering about Jordan Kyrou, and to some extent, I think we're wondering about Robert Thomas. I don't know that this is I shouldn't say that. I know that this isn't a team that will need to go scorched earth to rebuild, because there are already a lot of key pieces of the future that already exist within the organization. And I don't think you need to look any farther than someone who really turned heads at the World Juniors, and that's defenseman Adam Juracek, who was one of, if not maybe the best player in the entire tournament, to say nothing of, you know, Justin Carbonneau, and Luve Harenstram was the best goaltender of the tournament, to say nothing of, you know, the Dalibor Dvorskys that are already there, and the Snuggaruds and Jake Neighbors, et cetera. So it's not a situation where St. Louis has to make the decision, is it complete famine or do we add more veteran pieces? Because regardless of the decision that Doug Armstrong makes here, if it is to trade off some veterans, it's not as if the cupboard is bare for the future.
And Jeff, when you talk about that core, and Robert Thomas' name is one that has been kind of bandied about a little bit in the trade rumors, do you think the Blues would live to regret moving on from Robert Thomas if they did decide to pull the trigger and make that trade?
I do. I'm a big Robert Thomas fan. This isn't the best of all possible seasons for Robert Thomas, but you know, smart general managers don't make decisions based on streaks. You know, the NHL manager world is littered with managers that, you know, positively or negatively make their decisions on a player when he's on a positive streak or a negative streak, which is why the price for Robert Thomas is still astronomical. Because I think a lot of other teams out there are looking at the situation saying, you know what, Robert Thomas, by his standard, isn't having a great year. Maybe we can steal him from the St. Louis Blues. I don't think for 1 second that Doug Armstrong has any misgivings about who Robert Thomas is as a player. He's just going through what, you know, historically players have always gone through. A tough season. That's it.
When you look at that player, Jeff, because you've told us a lot of how much you love Robert Thomas, and it has been an underperforming season for him. Can you think of a comparison of something like a Robert Thomas gets traded in the NHL and what that return even looks like?
First of all, it would be massive, right? Because first of all, he plays a premium position. He is a first-line center. Maybe on a Stanley Cup team, he's a second-line center, but nonetheless, he plays a premium position. He is one of the elite playmakers in the NHL. Like, you think of like all the great passers in the NHL. Robert Thomas is in that conversation. I know it hasn't been the best of all possible seasons, but you put those things together and you say to yourself, this isn't a move. Like, even if you were considering it, it's not a move that you make at trade deadline. It's a move that if you're going to make it, you make in the off season, where you have more cap space, you have more teams to deal with. Maybe it's a draft day deal, things like that. It's really tough to make a move if you're going to with Robert Thomas, just because your field is so narrow at trade deadline time, and this move is so massive and would be enormous with a lot of moving pieces to it. It wouldn't be, put it this way, I would be surprised if Doug Armstrong decided to put Robert Thomas to market and didn't wait until the offseason, just because of the number of teams that would be interested, and you don't want to narrow that field at trade deadline.
That's kind of how we've felt. And again, we're talking with Jeff Marek of Daily Faceoff, host of The Sheet. You know, when you look at the underlying numbers for Robert Thomas this season, Jeff, you know, his assist numbers and the expected goals are there. It's just the Blues have struggled to finish around him. So when you look at the roster, do you think maybe Robert Thomas is just suffering from a roster with him that just isn't capable of playing to the same level that Robert Thomas is?
It's a great point. You know, could be. It's not as if, you know, Pavel Buchnevich and Jordan Kyrou are having excellent seasons either. I mean, it's always it's funny too. Hey, this is the conversation we have about plus minus.
Yeah.
Right. And all plus minus really is it's about the shooting percentage of the players around you and the save percentage of your goaltender. So I think there's probably something there. Like, look, no secret, things have gone poorly for the St. Louis Blues. This wasn't the way it was expected to go. I think there are still some things that Doug Armstrong can do proactively to help this team in the future. And I don't think anybody looks at Robert Thomas and says, what we're seeing this year is the real Robert Thomas. This is the outlier year. Is it about his teammates? Yeah, but if you ask Robert Thomas, he'll tell you it's about him, and he's not going to make any excuses.
And Jeff, kind of to follow up on that, do you view that as like the number one thing that the Blues are missing from what the top contenders have as finishers, or is there something else that you would identify?
Blue line. It's a great question. It's funny, too, because that might be the obvious one that we'll look at. To me, goaltending is still an issue, but to me, the big one is still the blue line. You know, the St. Louis Blues have taught us a number of things with that Stanley Cup run. One, you can get a lot of places with a really hot goaltender, but two, man, if your back end can't defend, you're sunk. And if you look at the history of teams that have won Stanley Cups in the salary cap era, what do they all have in common? Whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Vegas, whether it's Tampa, whether it's Florida, whether it's the Anaheim Ducks in 2007 with Pronger, Niedermeyer, and Beauchemin, if you can't defend in the playoffs, you will not win the Stanley Cup. Boston Bruins in 2011. Keep going, like every single team. And St. Louis was no different. I mean, it was a murderer's row of blue liners led by Alex Pietrangelo. If you don't have that, you can't win. Doug Armstrong, more than anybody else, understands that. And if I'm like, it's interesting doing triage at trade deadline because I think you do have to make a decision on Braden Shen and whether this is the time. I think you need to make a decision on, how soon do you start to put Dalibor Dvorsky into a significant position in the middle? Is he ready for a second line? Is he ready for second line? Is he ready for third line? But I think one of the big ones here is you need to do something with a woefully underperforming blue line, because when the blue line is sunk, like here's the wink at our previous conversation about Robert Thomas. We used to always talk about this with the Edmonton Oilers when they were full of Taylor Halls and Jordan Eberle's and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. If your blue line can't get the puck to the forwards, what can you really tell about your forwards? And that's what we're seeing right now with the St. Louis Blues. One of the major issues here, and it bleeds right into the net as well with the goaltenders. I know they haven't been great, but unless you have an NHL, like a decent NHL blue line, then everybody is going to suffer. The goalies will suffer, and the forwards will suffer. As you can tell, I have a strong bias towards defensemen, but that's really how I see it with the St. Louis Blues as well. To me, the big issue here is defending.
And Jeff, one thing that had been strong in previous stops for Jim Montgomery was his defensive structure. And he was able to unlock that with the Blues post-Four Nations last year. There's been some issues with the Blues fan base, as you would imagine, with a team that has been struggling, questioning Jim Montgomery, starting to question if he is the guy for the St. Louis Blues. Of course, all problems get pointed to the head coach. But I'm curious your thoughts for him. He's basically now had a full year with the St. Louis Blues. How would you evaluate the work from Jim Montgomery and what he's been able to do with the Blues?
Well, the record doesn't look good. Like, you just have to be blunt. Like, you got him into the playoffs last year, but I don't look at this team and say this is a Jim Montgomery issue. Like, Jim Montgomery didn't forget how to coach, right? Like, he really didn't. I look at what's happened with Justin Falk, and I look at the awkwardness of trying to break in Logan Mailloux, who has a ton of individual skills but still can't put it all together. I look at, and here's another one specifically, all of a sudden, like when Cam Fowler went to St. Louis from Anaheim, he was rejuvenated. And, that pair, Fowler and Parayko were fantastic. But much like in Anaheim, Fowler had just sort of settled into this rhythm that he was in, and it was almost as if he felt sort of maybe frozen there, and there wasn't a lot of inspiration. I don't know. It kind of feels like we're looking at the Cam Fowler from the last few years with the Anaheim Ducks, as opposed to that Cam Fowler that Doug Armstrong picked up from Anaheim. He sort of settled right back into that negative rhythm. He's had a tough season, and go all through the blue line. Like, listen, the Blues. Not to put too much of an accent on one thing, but we used to always say this about Chris Pronger, and now we say it about Alex Pietrangelo. When you guys know this in St. Louis, whenever Pronger would leave a team, that team would take at least one, sometimes two steps backwards. He's just so hard to replace. And I look at the St. Louis Blues, and ever since there was the contract situation with Alex Pietrangelo, and they weren't able to come to a resolution. It seems as ever since then, the St. Louis Blues have looked to sort of scramble to try to find players who do like a little bit of what Pietrangelo did, instead of just saying, you know what, we'll give him the no-move clause. Let's keep Alex Pietrangelo here, much like Pronger before him, and we see with Vegas too, as they scramble and now pick up Rasmus Andersson to help their back end. You just can't replace guys like that. And I still look at St. Louis and say they're still suffering the effects of not having Alex Pietrangelo in the lineup.
Jeff, I've got two more questions for you, and we really appreciate your time. Sure. We spent a lot of time talking about Robert Thomas. Do you feel the same about Jordan Kyrou? If they were to explore moving on from him, would they live to regret it?
Yeah. That's a really great question. My initial response to that is no, I don't think so. I think this is a player that probably needs a change of scenery at this point in his career. Like, the story with him and Craig Berube, I get it, and it's done, and everyone's sort of moved on, I would hope. But I wonder how much that still lingers in the back of Jordan Kyrou's mind, and how much that still affects his play. I don't know the answer to that. It's just something that I wonder about when I watch Jordan Kyrou. But with that kind of speed and that kind of potential, I still look at Kyrou and say, like, A, he probably needs a change of scenery. And B, I wonder about teams, and maybe the Washington Capitals are the obvious one, that, you know, teams that need an injection of speed into their lineup. I look at those two and say there could be a deal there. Like, when you look at the Washington Capitals, Caps in the offseason were right there trying to sign Nikolai Ehlers away from the Winnipeg Jets when he went free agent. The Carolina Hurricanes offered the extra year. They ended up getting him. But I don't think that that's changed Washington's desire to get faster. And they need it. Like, that's why, you know, Ethan Frank now has a prominent position in the Caps lineup. And a lot of it is because of foot speed, which is something an older Caps team doesn't have. Ovechkin doesn't have it. Dylan Strome doesn't have it. They still need that element in their lineup. And that's why I look at Jordan Kyrou and I say, I don't think they stopped giving up the search for speed. I wonder if there could be a fit there between St. Louis and Washington.
I really like that idea. Final one, Jeff. You've got your pulse on juniors hockey, college hockey, the young players coming into the draft. It looks like the Blues might be selecting in the top two this year. When you hear Ivar Stenberg and Gavin McKenna's name, which one do you feel comes in front? Yeah, that's where we're at now, Jeff. We're going top pick, baby.
Man. Wow. Okay. Listen, this may just be recency bias, but you look at what he's doing in the Swedish league playing with men, and it's really tough not to go with Stenberg right now. It's not as if Gavin McKenna is having an awful season at Penn State, and I do applaud him for, you know, in some ways, you know, leaving a situation in Medicine Hat in the Western League where he could have put up like 200 points and erased all doubt about who should be first overall. He's going to play, you know, playing college hockey against tougher opponents, and at times, you know, not finding himself on the top line. With Penn State, but Stenberg is special. Like, if I'm picking right now, today, you know, gun to my head, who you taking? I'm taking the Swede right now. He's just that good, that dynamic. And last time I checked, there's some bloodlines there in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's I've already started the plan here, Jeff, to just reunite the Stenberg brothers like the Sedin brothers in Vancouver. That worked for them. Why can't it work in St. Louis?
The brother act always works so great, doesn't it? Just ask your first-line center there in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It always seems to work out. Jeff, we love getting the chance to talk with you, man. Good luck going through your snowpocalypse. We'll make it out okay. Enjoy the weekend, my friend, and we'll talk again soon.
Start your day with a morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm.
Ready for action, basketball fans? BetMGM, an authorized gaming partner of the NBA, is giving players another reason to hit the court this season. BetMGM is adding extra excitement to every basket, every slam dunk, and every buzzer-beating shot with special promotions, new features, and more. Log in throughout the season to find odds boost tokens, no sweat tokens, and same game parlay boost tokens in your account to amplify your winnings. Enjoy enhanced product features like dark mode too. We have lots in store between now and when the new champions are crowned, so log into BetMGM, an authorized gaming partner of the NBA, all throughout the basketball season to see what's new. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Missouri only. Existing customer offer. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards vary and expire in 7 days. Please gamble responsibly.
This is Alexei Toropchenko, and today is a Blues Game Day on a 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Billiken's bid for 13th straight win. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Exactly 3 hours from now, 24th ranked SLU springs into action against St. Bonaventure. The Bills' lone loss came back on November 28th. George Mason also remains undefeated as far as A-10 play goes. Tonight, 101 ESPN carries Blues Stars puck drop at 7 p.m. Among note forwards, Matthew Joseph replaces Nathan Walker there. Elsewhere, division-wise, Chicago battles Tampa Bay. Central leading Colorado will host Philadelphia. Sunday's NFL Conference Championship games spotlight Pats, Broncos, plus Rams, Seahawks. National champion Fernando Mendoza, meanwhile, enters April's NFL Draft. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Jeff Marek, highly recommend checking it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Alex, your biggest takeaway before we get to our NFL weekend look ahead here in just a moment from your conversation with Marek was what?
His reaction to when I asked if they would pay to regret Robert Thomas being traded away versus Jordan Kyrou being traded away. He was adamant. And I know he likes Robert Thomas. He says it all the time. He was adamant about you're going to live to regret that. And Kyrou, he hesitated and then said, no, he probably needs to change the scenery. And then when he went on to say Washington, if they trade him, which I still don't believe a Kyrou trade is in season, it's probably off season, but there's a chance it gets happened at the deadline. I think they're going to look to find a 21, 22-year-old, whether it's a forward or a defenseman, that fits the age gap. And I would think Washington is an area he mentioned, and Buffalo is another one that matches this Blues team.
We were talking about this off air. Let's go ahead and bring it on air as well. Jason Robertson, I think there is a few different ways you can conduct a trade like this for Kyrou, Thomas, those two in particular. I think the upside play, the best player play, I guess is a better way to frame it, is somebody like a Jason Robertson who's entering an expiring contract. His current team either can't or won't re-sign him for whatever reason. Robertson fits into that mix. The other way that you could go about it is a current NHL player like an Owen Power, for example, with the Buffalo Sabres, an established player on a deal already, for whatever reason, either wears out his welcome or just like they need to change a scenery, that kind of a thing. Player for player, true hockey trade. That's the middle tier. And then I would say the lower rung is the Hudson that we were talking about earlier, a legit prospect who is expected to reach the NHL soon and could have a higher ceiling. Those are the kinds of deals that you can make in a trade like this. Do you think Robertson would make sense for the Blues? Let's start on it from that perspective.
I think Robertson would make sense for the Blues if it was for Kyrou. If you're trading Robert Thomas for Jason Robertson, to me, Jason Robertson won't be a $13 million player in St. Louis. I think you have to have somebody with him to be a $13 million player. And if you trade Robert Thomas away, although people have had their qualms with Robert Thomas, that would be the duo you're trying to build around, two 26-year-olds that can go out there and be a number one line. So if you could trade Kyrou for him, absolutely. I don't think Dallas would take that. They'd probably want more. And to me, if you trade Robert Thomas for Jason Robertson, sure, he's a face, but I think people are going to be complaining about him 2 years from now that he's making $13 million and he's not putting up 46 goals.
That's interesting. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm actually kind of thinking that's an interesting way to frame it. You're basically doing what Vancouver did last year in that scenario, where like you could build around one of them, in
Miller,
this case,
Pettersson.
Robert Thomas, the way that Vancouver said, you know what, we'll run it back one more time with Pettersson. We'll see if this works next year. Now, obviously, that's failed spectacularly.
I'm not liking our
Quinn Hughes wanted out
our
next.
one data point.
But if you were to trade like Kyrou, I don't know what else you would have to include in that kind of a deal.
Yeah, if it's Dallas, they want players that can play now. So, I mean, to be frank with you guys, it's probably Kyrou and Neighbors for Jason Robertson.
Would you consider that?
Yeah. I would. And I know people wouldn't like it because it's Jake Neighbors, but you got to get a guy who can score with Robert Thomas. Like, the only way this team goes north is if they go out there and get goal scorers. And if I'm losing Jordan Kyrou, and I don't want to trade Jake Neighbors, I think that's got captain material written all over it. I'm also losing 2 wingers, and I'm replacing them with 1, Jason Robertson, and 2, with Justin Carbonneau and with this potential top 3 draft pick. And to me, I've gotten rid of $10 million. I've added $3 million to the payroll with Robertson, but it's a long-term deal. And then I'm bringing in more rookie players. So, yeah, if that's the deal that they ask for, it would be hard for me to not consider it. Now, it might bite you because you're trading in division. Yeah. Robertson might not be Robertson of Dallas and St. Louis. Neighbors is going to be a pain for the rest of your time.
The other thing I would point out on this build, too, is, I know you're betting on Thomas. Is Thomas the guy that can get the most out of Robertson, too?
That's the question you have to ask.
It's a big bet. Yep. And you could be
Vancouver bet wrong when they did Pettersson, because Pettersson's not the guy, but I don't think JT Miller was the guy.
And if you're the Blues, the only way you make this deal is if you're giving Jason Robertson a big long-term extension. Yeah. Otherwise, there would be no reason to do this. The reason the other thing that I wanted to get to, T-Bone, from the 3-1-4, why would Dallas trade Robertson when they're contenders right now? I think that's going to be the reaction to a lot of fans that are listening to the segment right now. Let me explain their perspective a bit. They don't think they can re-sign him or don't want to re-sign him to the money that he is likely to command on the market. He is an RFA after this season. In arbitration, he's probably going to get about $12 million.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that that's realistic for Dallas on their current cap sheet. They have to
move pieces out that they don't want to move.
Exactly. So they're probably going to have to trade either Robertson in season or this offseason. And if they deem Kyrou in this scenario the best asset that they could get back in return for Robertson, they may say, you know what? Kyrou kind of gives us 80% of Jason Robertson. He's $8 million instead of 12, which fits in much better with our salary structures that we have right now around him. And we think Kyrou is going to be a hell of a lot better with us than he was with the Blues, because we think he's in a better situation with us than he was with the Blues. So we can get the best out of him. This is a perfect scenario for us. Yeah. And we're getting something else. Like maybe they throw in a first-round pick. Great. Sounds good. So that would be the case for Dallas on why they would make this kind of deal.
Perfect case. Look at Colorado. They traded Rantanen for Natchez, and Natchez is a better player for them right now. And Rantanen's still a great player, but when he went to Carolina, he wasn't, and Carolina had to ship him out to Dallas. So my other concern with Robertson is, why doesn't Dallas want to pay him? I mean, this is a 100-point producer. This is a 30-goal, 40-goal scorer, 2-time 40-goal scorer. Why don't they want to pay him?
Because they paid Rantanen.
Sure.
That's why.
I'd like to have multiple of these guys. And I have the out in terms of I can move on from some of these other pieces to keep this guy. I just always have to ask myself, if it's a generational player that everybody wants, why are they wanting to move him?
They've got Rope Hintz at 8.5, Wyatt Johnston at 8.5, Tyler Seguin at 9.5, Mikko Rantanen at 12, Heiskanen at 8.5, Harley at 10.5. Ottinger at 8.5, because they made their bets. And you can only make so many of these bets at $8+ million before you get to a place where you're like, we have to trade people. Why did the Blues decide to trade Barbie? Not because they didn't like him. You can only keep so many players. There are only so many guys that you can have.
On the wrong player, though.
I would say, is this not a little different from the Barbies? The reason I asked that question is that was a tight cap era, right? That was
a flat
cap's
cap.
Not going up. It is a flat cap. It was hard. Now you can at least project that cap's going up. So like the first year or two, this might be hard to swallow. By the time you get into years 3, 4, and 5, I would think that it's a lot easier.
Next year, Sagan's coming off by the time Robertson's a UFA.
But next year he's not. So
I know, but you could go to arbitration, and if it's $12 million,
They can't do it, man. There's too many spots available on their roster. If he makes $12 million next year, every other player they add would have to be $700,000 or less.
Yeah, I mean,
so they couldn't fill out their roster.
They've got $16 million in cap space, and then they have 4 guys that are free agents, and their defensemen are essentially locked up right now. I mean, they could make it work and then reassess 2 years from now when Sagan's, that's $9.8 million that comes off. Jamie Benz comes off this year. they could technically make it work. Now, you don't want to because you like to have wiggle room in the NHL cap space, and I get that, but
they would be completely up against the cap. They would probably have to, I think if I'm seeing this right, they'd probably have to trade off a player or two. Like they'd maybe have to move Matt Duchene, who has a complete no-move clause for next season, maybe like a Radek Faksa and get it in a $700,000. It's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible to bring him back with zero wiggle room. I mean, zero wiggle room and zero upgrades.
But what I'm saying,
so it's really hard to make it work.
What I'm saying, though, is if this guy is that elite, you don't let them leave. And my concern with Robertson, and I don't think they're the same because there's obviously history.
Why Colorado traded Rantanen?
Because they wanted to get Martin Necas, who was younger, matched their identity, and they didn't want to pay him that money.
All of those things could be true for this scenario with Kyrou over Jason Robertson.
Maybe. But if I'm Dallas, if I'm Colorado, I have Nathan McKinnon, I have Cale Makar, I have Landeskog. I've got these guys that can generate offense. I'm going to go get a younger guy that matches the DNA of my team who can provide what Rantanen does. If I'm Dallas, Jason Robertson is 26 years old. He's already young. He matches the DNA of my team. Why would I trade that for a guy who is older than him? Yes, he's cheaper, but I don't know if he matches the DNA that Jason Robertson does with my team.
We didn't know how it would fit with Colorado either. At the time, it was a huge risk, and I think all of us were critical of the trade. Yeah. I was critical of the trade.
I was very critical of the trade.
And I didn't get it. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And now you look at it, you're like, okay, it kind of set them up better for long-term sustainable success. And I just view it as like, you can only make so many of these bets at $8+ million. We're seeing the Blues. The Blues get into a tight cap situation whenever they have too many guys that are making $8+ million on their cap sheet. And when you make that big bet on Mikko Rantanen at $12 million and you have 2 or 3 other guys that are around 10, it gets tight, man. And like, I like Jason Robertson a lot. I think he's a really good hockey player. If you're telling me I can lock in similar production from Kyrou at 8 compared to what I would get with Robertson at 12, that's the kind of move that GMs make a lot of the time for long-term certainty. So I know everybody here locally does not like Jordan Kyrou any longer. I think people in Carolina were a little frustrated with Martin Necas. He didn't become the player there that they were hoping that he ultimately would. He's flourished in Colorado. Maybe the same thing would be true for Jordan Kyrou if he was able to get down to Dallas and be in a better situation with him than what he is here in St. Louis. It's possible. I don't know. That would be the bet that they're making. I'm just giving the Dallas Devil's advocate perspective would be that. Alex is giving the Dallas, why are they getting rid of this guy? Am I buying damaged goods? As the Blues perspective. And I think that's a reasonable way to look at this as well. You have to wonder, all right, why, when people get to free agency, that means their team didn't re-sign him. Yeah. Why? They know more about you than anybody. Why didn't they re-sign you?
This is especially one of those that wasn't a surprise that he became a $12 million player, right? You could have projected this out, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
They had these arguments a couple of years ago when he went to arbitration, and they only gave him, because remember, he was going to hold out and not come to camp until they paid him, and they gave him the 2-year deal that paid him what he's making right now. So I just going back to the original conversation, I think what's more likely is scenario 2 and scenario 3 that you painted with Jordan Kyrou. I think if they're going to move Kyrou, they're saying, let's get 4 years younger. Let's go get a guy that fits this mold. But it's also been reported by multiple insiders, the Blues are looking for a top 6 difference maker. Jason Robertson is that. Now, I can have my qualms and say, I don't know if he's going to be that without Wyatt Johnston and Mikko Rantanen and Wyatt and Rope Hintz on the same line, but that's a 26-year-old who's the same age as Robert Thomas that you're going to have to pay substantially, but he's also the top 6 guy that you do not have in your system.
Yeah, since the start of the 2021 season, he has 180 goals. It's over the last 5 seasons. That's how many goals he has.
And he stayed healthy, too. He's played back-to-back 82-game seasons.
Yep. I mean, he's wildly skilled as a goal scorer. If the Blues are missing goal scorers, and we've all agreed that's been the case, that's been their biggest issue. We said this after the game the other night. They don't have guys that hit the back of the net. That dude hits the back of the net just about as much as anybody in the NHL.
Yep.
So that's the kind of move that is highly aggressive. It does have real downside. It could blow up in their face. And maybe he is a product of his system and a product of the situation. Or maybe he's a 40-goal scorer and the exact thing that the Blues have been missing for the last decade. Could go either way. It's high risk, high reward. All right, we did not get to our NFL weekend look ahead there. Instead, we decided to spend a little bit of time talking about the Blues. Hopefully you guys didn't mind that from us. We will talk a little bit about the NFL's championship weekend coming up next, plus give you a few thoughts on the college basketball slate that we're anticipating this weekend as well. It's all coming up next here on the BK and Ferrario Rewind.
On 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Tonight, Blues and Stars. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. ESPN has your shot to score an autographed puck by Blues defenseman Justin Falk. Enter to win that Justin Falk signed puck right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at gloriahasthebuyers.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
All right, guys, let's get into the weekend that lies ahead. Championship weekend, one of my favorite weekends in the NFL. Divisional round weekend would be number one for me. You get 4 great games typically. This weekend, second, though. It's the highest quality football that we have to offer this year in the league. You got Patriots versus the Broncos, Rams versus the Seahawks. Both games within 5 points on the point spread. Let's start out with Pats versus Broncos. Alex, are you excited about this game? Let's start out kind of big picture here. Are you looking forward to this?
Am I looking no, I don't think so, because I'm predetermining what the outcome is going to be. Halftime, I might have a different answer on this if the Broncos defense makes it interesting. I just don't see this being interesting. Even if the Broncos defense is elite, I don't see the Broncos offense putting up points. So this might be like a 6-3 football game going into halftime if the Patriots offense can't run. I firmly believe, which is why I'm not as excited about it. It's playoff football, so I'm always excited. But I firmly believe that at halftime, this thing's going to be in the Patriots' favor, and it's going to look like, yeah, they're probably done because Jared Stidham's not the guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no real interest in this Patriots-Broncos game because I don't trust Jared Stidham, right? And I don't watch the NFL for good defenses. I watch it for great quarterback play. That's what makes it fun.
You don't like a 6-3 shootout?
No,
Alex, T-Bone has a very specific lane of what he's interested in.
Yeah, and he's checking out if you don't give it to him. He is done with this
He's
trash.
mad at the Cardinals because they don't have superstars. We'll talk him in 5 years.
Blues can't score. Done.
You laugh. I am with about 80% of America. Okay,
We'll see.
I don't see this game.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think they get pretty good numbers for this game.
Wow, there ain't gonna be much else going on, especially in the Midwest.
What else are you going to watch, right? Like that's the big thing there. But yeah, I'm with Alec. I don't have much interest in this game just because of the quarterback play we're going to see from Stidham.
I just want to see if they can do it. I do have kind of this morbid curiosity of, all right, what you got, Sean Payton? What's the game plan going to look like for you to be able to wiggle
Sean's
your way
going to tell you afterwards
thing?
nothing.
You prepare,
maybe.
You prepare for the Texans. What time is that game kick off at? 1?
2 o'clock.
Yeah,
2 o'clock. Are you ready for the text at like 3:30 from BK? All right, he didn't have answers.
No, and I think that's the most likely outcome. I think the odds are firmly stacked against the Broncos winning this game. But they're at home in a place that is difficult to play. They, for most of the season, had the number 1 or number 2 defense, depending on which metrics you decide to use. And they have a coach who is known for putting together some outstanding game plans. This is a guy that has won in his history with like Taysom Hill at the quarterback position, right? He has not always had these superstar level quarterbacks, and he finds ways to win. And the Patriots defense, while they've looked great the last couple of weeks, let's be real about the competition they've also gone up against. They went up against a Texans team that was without its right tackle, number 1 tight end, and number 1 wide receiver. They went up against a Chargers team that was basically without the entire offense. So I don't know that it's going to look quite the same way this weekend against a well-coached and overall solid personnel offensively outside of the quarterback position. And I think he's merely average to below average. So I have a morbid curiosity about it. I do agree with you guys. I think the Patriots probably ultimately win this game. But I am interested. I'm really curious to see what Sean Payton's able to come up with.
This is going to be like the Titanic sinking by the second half. You're just going to basically be watching it go down.
Who's Jack and Rose? Sean Payton, the guy
Mike
that's
Vrabel
taking
and
up
Drake
the
May, obviously.
Payton's definitely the one that's like, yo, there's no more room on here.
You
Get
stay
off.
there, Stidham.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
I thought we were love. It was just lust. All right, Rams versus the Seahawks Sunday
Spoiler.
night NFC Championship game. This one I am very interested in. I think it's an awesome football game. I saw a preview for this from my nerdy numbers, the DVOA stuff. It's basically the number 1 offense in the NFL all season versus the number 1 defense in the NFL all year. You can't really ask for much better in terms of a specific matchup in a game. Rams offense, Seahawks defense. Maybe the MVP of the league, 2 of the top 20 receivers in the NFL, best game planner on the offensive side of the ball, going up against what I think is probably the best defensive mind of the NFL right now in McDonald on the Seahawks side of things. The other side is weakness on weakness. I don't know what to expect out of this Seahawks offense, and I don't really know what to expect right now out of the Rams defense. How you guys feeling going in?
This is going to be my favorite game. I'm very excited. Anytime I could get a division rivalry in a championship game that goes to the Super Bowl, I think is just it's perfectly set up. So I think this one's going to be tight, despite me believing Stafford is banged up and not himself. I still think Sam Darnold is going to have those jitters at some point. But that Seahawks defense is going to be a difference maker in this one. I think this is going to be either a drive down the field that ends the football game or a field goal that ends the football game. And I still think Seahawks win.
Yeah, I think Seahawks win. I think they win by a touchdown. I even think there's a chance they win this game by 10.
Wow.
And here's why. We talk about the Rams. I agree. Best offensive mind. I'm not surprised to hear they were one of the best, if not the best offense in football this year. They've not been playing good football for really, 4 of the last 6 weeks? And you look at their last 2 games and you go, all right, feels like they're going to lose, and they somehow find a way. I don't know that they can somehow find a way against that good of a Seahawks defense. With Stafford banged up, I think Adams is still dealing with something, it looks like, because he's not played well. I just think the Rams are really going to struggle, and I don't think their defense is going to get enough stops.
I've got the Seahawks in a really close one as well. Stafford's health just concerns me. I think he's going to get hit, and it feels like every week so far in the postseason we've seen it. Early on, looks amazing. Comes out, the opening script is fantastic, and then gets hit a couple of times. Starts to wane down the stretch. I've got the Seahawks in a really close one in that one as well. Some interesting college basketball hoop side of things. We've got St. Louis versus the St. Bonaventure Bonnies.
The Bonnies.
Tonight. Also on the Mizzou side of things, sounds like they will be playing tomorrow against Oklahoma. That's the expectation right now. They got to win that one. And Illinois has a huge game tomorrow on the road against Purdue, a game that could ultimately have huge implications for their seeding in the NCAA tournament. So excited to watch that one. Sit down tomorrow as well. Blues back-to-back. Alex will have pregame
excited
coverage
for this one.
tonight for this one. Blues back in action once again tonight. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Be safe out there this weekend. If you don't have to drive anywhere, just don't. We will talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. Appreciate Bradford Bruns for doing a fantastic job back in the studio for us today. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Everybody be safe. You can spend the night on the couch or you can go to the moon.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Jeff Kern from Prairie du Rocher, Illinois. He's our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty.